going on?
4, 3.
Okay, so here we go. And what's it called? And welcome to. That didn't work out as planned. Man, broadcast.
It never worked out.
Zoom.
That's fun.
There we go. And we are live here with a special edition of emergency special edition of DEFCON 201 in light of recent events to talk about privacy. We have assembled a whole board of privacy experts and wannabe experts in fields of technology and law to discuss things how you could stay safe and do things and conduct operations, security and personal security and other such goodies. So, yes, Dade, he's driving a race car on cam. So who wants to go first? General OPSEC stuff. What's it called? Up next, I will be, as promised, I have how to make a burner camera out of a cell phone. How you'd kind of set that up. I'm going to be doing that live. So I guess we'll start this off with some general OPSEC stuff.
Sure. So do you want us to introduce ourselves real quick to just people
Yes.
can hear our voice?
Yes, go. All right, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. I'm you. That's it.
Shell.
Thank you for that, you.
I'm Caesar.
Great introductions here.
Yeah, just Caesar.
I'm Exodusnate. Hexa.
I'm RQ.
I'm Gilda. I hate this.
Lovely.
I'm Fred.
Hi, Fred.
Awesome. People are saying that the audio is a bit quiet. You might want to just turn it up on OBS real quick, a little bit. I don't know if you can. But
So is this quiet? Everyone can hear everything?
let us know in the chat. Can you hear us?
Check.
Hello, chat. Please respond.
Mic check.
Check. Mic check.
Gang.
Okay, yeah. So he's saying that the Zoom output is quiet, so you might have to just pull up that on audio real quick. But yeah.
All right, try it now.
Hello. All right, Dade says it's good. I trust Dade.
All right,
Me
awesome.
too.
Awesome.
That was your first mistake.
All right, so let's introductions again. You.
Yeah, I'm you.
No, I've been busy.
Next.
And Rob live.
And
I'm Caesar.
Do you want to announce that on air?
yes, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, our co-founder, Cy
Yeah.
Pocket. So, what's it called? General. You had general privacy stuff. Or
Yeah. So okay. So yeah. Wait. Are you talking to me? I should have just used another name. Because it's completely confusing. So for OPSEC, you want to start off with OPSEC stuff real quick?
The general, the basic OPSEC talk.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, so we have a list of certain things we wanted to discuss, and so a lot of these things will be discussed while we go through everything. So if we don't hit on a specific point, definitely you might hear it later. But definitely also ask questions though, because we'll have a Q&A. We'll be able to ask questions from the chat and answer them later on. But as far as OPSEC goes, I mean, it really comes down to what you're dealing with here. So like right now we're dealing. We're
Sorry to interrupt, but Jack, can you guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, hang on a moment, because I'm on a delay. Cyricel said that an alert went out earlier. I'm going to try to get him on cam, just in case people didn't get that alert. Cyril, are you ready to say what it is? Okay. What was the alert?
In New York City put out a curfew starting at 11.
Okay, there's a curfew in New York from 11 a.m. to 5 a.m.
Here, I'll show it to you because I just got it
So
also.
that's what's going on right now.
Correct.
That's all. Continue.
Violators will be shot on sight. What? Oh.
Well, seriously,
Stop,
if
okay.
there's a curfew, I wonder if there's going to be potentially some kind of cell blackout or something that's accompanying. There's some concern with that in DC, but I think that was like not actually happening.
All right.
Yeah.
Especially with the amount of like militarized police force there now being confirmed. Yeah.
Yes. So we'll get to that in a minute. Let's start basic privacy, and then we'll start.
Basic privacy stuff. So if we're going through, we'll get back to what we were saying before. We have to be thinking now, right? We have discussed collectively as the hacker community, as Subcrowd, as DEFCON 201, as everybody who's in here individually, have talked about the importance of OPSEC for a lot of different reasons. Throughout history, just being here, but now specifically in this specific time, where everybody is now basically going to be subject to whatever sort of laws and surveillance and other things that are happening to target whatever specific people are being targeted. We're all going to now fall under that jurisdiction, whether you're protesting, whether you're just a normal person. So we'll be having a lot of these sort of challenges as people who are just living our normal lives, and people who are, expressing dissent in any way. And so when it comes to OPSEC, definitely comes down to understanding your threat model and what potentially could happen, which is now becoming kind of murky because there's a lot of new things that are happening that we're uncertain of. And so, taking that all into consideration is really important. But as far as like OPSEC goes, like there's been a lot of really cool guides, and so I was trying to grab some of them. If you're going out in public though, and you're going to like demonstrations, there's a lot of really concrete things that you can do. To when you start off, like covering your face, covering tattoos, wearing pretty nondescript clothing. Assume that any communication that you have is going to be monitored. Full disk encryption. Don't use like Facebook or Twitter if you're really trying to hide what you're doing. Making sure that you don't have, you're not using, credit cards when you're in an area that might be surveilled. Don't put pictures of people online. Try not to post any pictures of people. Blur them if you can. Redacting stuff. There's a lot of really basic things to do. But I guess if we're going to go through like tools and other techniques and stuff,
yes.
we'll cover those in more detail. But I guess does anybody here have any more specific OPSEC sort of things to discuss?
Awesome. So I was going to go through like basic. I was asking if anybody has like any before we go into more advanced stuff. I call this because I have I posted on Twitter. I have a very specific thing I want to show. So I wanted to let's just get started with like basic stuff. Who wants to name like a base? Who is like just some good basic talking points on basic stuff like Tor or Tails or metadata anonymization tools?
Oh, I was gonna start off with like even just like the simplest things, right? Like if you're talking about like simple stuff, like turn off Face ID, turn off Touch ID. Airplane mode your phone when you're not using it.
So even more simple than that, you can split up a lot of these things into two categories. There's technological mitigations and there's non-tech mitigations. So if you don't even take a phone and you have organization, you can totally work it without needing to have any tech at all.
Yes.
So to give you an instance of this, a couple of years ago, there were protests in DC, and a lot of people left their phones at home because of INSI catchers, which is great. Like if you can go without a phone, perfect. So what they do instead, they flew kites in the streets to organize where groups were, so you could see them from pretty much anywhere in the city. And they also used vuvuzelas. So there was never a funnier time than seeing Richard Spencer running in fear from some kid on a bike with a vuvuzela.
That's the one thing I will approve of a vuvuzela, because those things are pure murder on the ears. And that is funny though. That is the one time I will approve.
Well, and the great thing about them is that you hear them anywhere in the city. So if you hear them, then you know that there's somebody nearby who's either friendly or unfriendly to you. So it's a binary signal that you
Oh,
can do
God.
with no tech involved.
Oh God, thank you. That's awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you for that. So the one thing I have to I was going to show today is I was going to show very basically of how do you set up a burner camera. This is basically a phone. We're not using it as a phone. We're not installing phone apps. This is the best way to for this is Lineage OS.
Jack.
Yeah.
Before you get into that, I want to mention something. So I'm really glad that Emily brought up, and just to note also, I'm on like a couple second delay. That's why I seem really off. So I apologize if I accidentally interrupt anyone. I don't mean to do that. It's just because of the delay. But I'm glad that Emily brought up the fact that there are tech responses to this and non-tech responses. And I think that's a really good thing that you brought up there, especially since, again, even without using like fake towers or anything, law enforcement can normally just like ask Google and get like the IDs for everyone's device and the geolocate there. So if you can leave your phone at home, that's great. I do want to point out though that if you have to bring your phone, and in particular, because there's really no solution for this for iOS, you should definitely leave that at home. If you have an Android phone, some things I'm going to be showing off on the stream for bits, and I'll let you speak, Jack, is some of the stuff I have on my phone. So a big one is there's two main things, because you're going to try to avoid the Play Store. One is to use F-Droid. F-Droid, I'm trying to remember what their full URL is for their website, but it's basically like an
f-droid.org.
unofficial repository for different APK files, which are the apps on your Google phone that you can download, and we'll type this stuff in chat. And it has a lot of tools, since a lot of it's open source and activist community. There's a lot of tools on there that I'll show up later. But if there's something that's not on F-Droid that's on Google Play Store that you would absolutely need if you are going to bring your phone, there's a really good app that you only have to download once. You might be able to download it, I think, off of F-Droid, which is called the Aurora Store, which basically accesses the Google Play Store, but when you start it, you can create a randomized account with just one touch, and that random account is basically, when you download stuff, that disposable account is what it's downloaded on. So when Google looks, it's just some like long string user ID. I mean, there's other ways to find out what's on your phone, but just for getting important apps on your phone, F-Droid and Aurora Store would be a must. And so speaking of phones, we're going to go to Jack's thing about what he designed.
Okay, so as I was saying, right here we have burner camera designed as a phone. So this is basically the point of this is once you pull out one of these, you're going to be tracked, and that's not the point, because you're expected that you're going to be involved with somebody who's a high risk of somebody smashing a camera, or the camera might not be coming home. Either due to natural or unnatural causes. It could be cops, could be, opposing militia, opposing rioters, that kind of, what's it called? It could be Proud Boys or white supremacists, or whoever that might just decide that they don't want you filming and smash your camera. Mind you, if somebody's not acting up, please don't just point this at random people's faces. But this is a good way if you want to keep law enforcement accountable. So this is just like the first things you need is you need a cloud account. I'm using DigitalOcean. Unfortunately for me, DigitalOcean used to have a pre-built Nextcloud account. And if you're very technical, you can just still spin up any instance and install Nextcloud yourself, which is what I do. But I was looking for something more one-click-ish because it kind of lowers the technical barrier. So not only do you need a burner phone hardware, you need a burner Nextcloud instance. So if you'll let me share my screen here. Right here, you will see here that this is what's it called, Nextcloud. Just get started. What's it called? A little test space I created here. What's it called? Marketplace here. There used to be Nextcloud. What's it called in here? But there's moved it out. So if you type in Nextcloud.
Oh, so you're not streaming. You're screen sharing to Zoom, but not to OBS.
Okay.
It's in OBS.
One second. Let me.
I'm looking at the stream right now. It's not in OBS.
Oh, it's because you moved it
thank you. 1
across.
second. Let me get.
There we go. Oh, never mind. That's like Mattermost.
1 second.
It's not DEFCON 201 unless we have technical errors. So.
This is what happens every time you try to use Zoom and OBS at the same time. You're lucky this hasn't stack fault yet.
Okay. So
because you use Linux, that's why.
I'm
Yeah,
running.
this is you're
Right.
still. So what I would try to do is stop sharing on Zoom and share directly to OBS so we can watch from there.
Okay. Um,
And then you have to email the.
Yeah, that will work. Go in the screen
Yeah.
share mode.
Yeah, take that off
Yeah.
here.
where is this? This is.
Oh my god, we're getting so much views right now. It's ridiculous. I'm really happy. Thank you all for tuning in and educating yourselves. We very much appreciate this. We're here for you. So
There we go. I see the droplets page now. Cool.
Awesome. So maybe we'll just do this on fucking Windows next time. Fucking Windows.
yeah, that's what I've been doing. Also, I'm gonna go in. Oh no, Jack, please. This is gonna be weird, but let's try to keep swearing to a minimum. Not only because we don't know who's watching, but I don't have mature content turned on for anything because there'll be less people in and we'll be like pushed to the bottom of searches. So
Well, okay. Well, bleep bleep. Then bleeper bleeper. Okay, so here we have this Cloud Run. I just found this. Not going to vouch for this, but I just found this yesterday when I was looking for it. This is just basically a. This is just basically one of those one-click install thingies that you can put this on kind of any size you want, but you're really not going to use more than 25 gigabytes of disk. You're just not. And if you feel you're more, you could just go to pay a little more and get 10. So. So we're just going to go NC test, create the droplet. Hold on, let me, what's it called? Let me, let me actually cut the, what's it called? I'm going to cut the static real quick, basically to try to avoid doxing my entire
demo
setup.
gods don't like us today as usual.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, main broadcast, cut.
Oh, we do have a lot of viewers. Let's keep this up.
Fuck.
Also, no, everyone can hear us still, I think. Maybe, I don't know. Let me tell. No, no
Yo,
one can hear us. We're
close
good.
out of all those windows, man.
So stop showing off our private Keybase chat.
Jesus. Okay, okay, control.
Sec.
Alright.
I'll tell you right now though, because I have to monitor like all the radio stuff that's going on. It is insane right now in Manhattan.
Okay. So, right here. So yes, what you call it, among other things, I do have the goatee.camera domain. Don't go there. Just saying, just don't go on the page. It's a kid-friendly page about goats. 100% goats. Friendly farm animals. In case anybody's wondering, farm animals were good.
Could be worse. Could be the White House website right now.
About the same, really, right? Okay, so we're gonna do nc test.goatee, nc test, right here, right here. So let's, important here is do a wildcard as well.
Audio cut out.
Okay, and we're back here. So we're over. Okay, so right here, we set up the DigitalOcean part. This should be good. Let's switch back to. One of these days, I will perfect the fine art and kind of what's it called? Figure out how this old works. So now, what's it called? Now that we set up the DNS.
Oh God, you won't believe who's in chat, and he just said, "Looks like someone didn't masturbate for the demo gods." Hang on.
Oh.
I'll deal with this.
Well,
hang on. Because you can't be in chat unless you were actually like real military. So.
Oh, apparently no. Jesus. Yep, that's me holding a dildo. I'm not sure. Congratulations. I've handled sex toys before. I don't know.
Jack, remember the stream? Please go. Just be serious. I'll handle it.
Lovely. All right, so. So 1 second, once I go share, I'm going to cut back to static, and I'm going to share my. So you basically have like one of these. Then you're going to. What's your domain name?
I guess while Jack's setting up, I just want to let you know, since that a group member of them was in here, that Facebook, especially private Facebook, is not actually private. So if you run your own InfoSec community on there, you are doing it wrong. Real quick, Jack, Hamster asks, is only DigitalOcean able to perform what you're trying to do with the phone?
No. All I'm... No. I'm going with this thing called Cloud ROM because it's easy. It's one-click install. You can run Nextcloud on anything. So, App Store.
Okay, something just happened.
So let's use. All right, so here we have a password. So right here, no, what's it called? So now we're in. This is Cloud Run. You basically have one-click installs. Interesting.
Jack, they kind of want a summary of what you're doing on end-to-end while you're typing, so there's no dead air.
Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm signing in with this little web app thingy, and I am connecting an app. What's it called? And I'm using this with this web app thingy. Server shutdown in progress. Oh boy, this might be serious drama incoming.
Yeah, so banter. What's up?
What's up? Just having myself a day.
So I'll call out some of those pamphlets that we were talking about earlier.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're going to click on the one-click install for Nextcloud. What the hell is this not?
Jack, how about you work on it behind the scenes? And I believe that Hexa had some comments to make.
Yeah, I'll tell you about some of these. There's some reading material that you can use to bootstrap yourself if you haven't used any of this before.
Jack, please display the.
So security and counter surveillance on archive.org. Search for that. You might want a metadata for zines or zine. It's a pretty good one.
You know, there's a lot of really good stuff I've seen out there for zines and material for people who want to learn all this stuff. Like, there was some stuff I'll share some in the chat. There's like the EFF surveillance self-defense guide. There's new stuff like Crime Think, and there's like a lot of precedent for a lot of this kind of stuff. People have been fighting, digital surveillance, especially for protests, online for a long time, and so there is already a wealth of resources, which is really cool, and it's good to just be able to have them and share them, and be able to discuss the practicality of them, because a lot of the stuff that you think about, when you talk about it with anybody. When there's not an active conflict happening, it seems crazy. It seems crazy to be like, protect yourself in this way, like, burner phone. Like, it's a meme about burner phones at like DEFCON, but those kind of things are actually useful in a lot of situations. And so there is definitely a lot of really, really good resources out there. And Hexa had shared a thread, actually. I believe that I have that. There's a thread on, or unless you want to share it in Twitch chat, or if you have it in Matrix, your thread on different zines from archive.org, because there's a lot of really, really good information that's just already out there. It's just hard to find sometimes with
For anyone speaking and they need links, if you type them in the Zoom chat, I will reshare them on the restream so everyone can see them in all the chat rooms we're streaming them.
I'll get links. I've got the archive pulled up right now. And you're right. It's like, it seems like it's like overkill when you don't need it, but then when you do, having that prep is pretty helpful.
Yeah, I would jump in and add for the EFF surveillance self-defense guides. They're awesome, but they're pretty specific to when they were written. Be sure to check when they were last updated, because some of those were out there for like a couple years past their actual a couple years past when there was better info out there, basically.
Yeah, the other one I like from the EFF is the one about printer tracking dots. for like when you're printing out documents.
Yes.
Something to be aware of is that, printers have tracking dots on them that kind of like almost invisible, like watermarks on all the documents you print. And there's resources out there. The EFF has one that I'll post, but there's other resources out there now, I'm sure. So if you can get an old burner printer.
R.I.P. to the reality winner I used to be.
I will want to inject in one important one that when I get on to talk about my thing that's really good is an invaluable resource is privacytools.io. They're constantly updating with different tools, and they really try to focus on open source. And if something changes, like for example, when Keybase got bought by Zoom, they put notations in there. They're very good on upkeep for different types of services, apps, browsers, and just all the stuff at a very basic copy-paste level that you can do on all of your devices. So does anyone have something to go through? Jack, did you repair your thing? If not, does anyone
Yeah,
else
it
have
should
another topic?
it should be going on. Let's go see if we can.
So I said MC catchers a while ago. I don't know if everyone is totally aware of that technology. It's been out there for a while, but if there's anyone that's kind of, I get the feeling that this stream is kind of geared toward people who may not know what that could be. Do we need to explain that technology?
I mean, I guess it would be good to explain it just for people who might not know, because there's also a lot of myths about MC captures and what they're actually capable of doing and where they can be deployed. So yeah, we can go over that.
Just to mention here, the way we usually do stuff at DEFCON 201 is you just start off explaining it to, like the phrase goes, someone who's 5, and then you can ramp it up as complicated as you need it to be. So as long as you do base explanations, we can talk into further in-depth topics. So go right ahead.
Good call.
Well, so the basic idea is that law enforcement has the ability to track signals. Just as a basic rule, lots of different kinds of signals. In particular, MC catchers will help to hijack the frequency that's used for cell phones. Do you want to talk about the hard tech behind that, you?
Yeah, I mean, so there are basically what an MC catcher does is just emulates a actual cell tower. I mean, you can use them. So there's if you have anybody's been familiar, you might have seen talks about femto cells. Basically, same idea, except for they have many different capabilities for being able to actually, what the interface is going to be like. Because if you're sitting on a tower, it's not going to be as straightforward as just open log.txt. But there are different ways of being able to calculate who has been connecting to the tower, what their hardware ID is for their phone, which is intrinsically linked to your phone. So if you have your IMEI, if you have the actual hardware data from your phone transmitted and connected to a tower, that is logged, and it's something that can be used for a bunch of different reasons. It could be used in court, it could be used to just determine whether or not you were somewhere where you were traveling. And geolocation is pretty good, and it's been used. They've been used quite a lot on protesters before. Police who are using an MC catcher can read SMS, intercepts, plain text, stuff like that, and just it's mainly used for a way to monitor how many people are around and what they're saying and doing. So yeah, I mean they're definitely out there. That's why we have said if you're going to go to a protest, you assume that anything that you text, plain text, is going to be logged and read. And that's pretty much, I guess, what you can jump off from it. If anybody has anything else to say about MC catchers.
Well, as a kind of forking topic to that, it's worth pointing out too. So misinformation and disinformation tends to get around really fast when you have protests going on. So over the last couple of days, there have been some hashtags that have been getting pumped pretty hard, not necessarily based on any real thing that's happening, but the perception is important. So if there was maybe a cell outage in one part of DC last night that caused people to think that there was a citywide blackout. That's could potentially be a failure in technology, not necessarily an actual blackout that's being caused by a jammer. So it's in situations like this, I think it's always wise to default to the basic, like just a failure of technology rather than something that's actually being targeted.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of
also just also something simple like just so many people using a service that it goes down as well. Just want to mention something that's in the comments that someone said was someone mentioned about using metadata that's inaccurate, and one thing that they want to know about is the concept of like mailing your phone overnight with an external battery to a friend who would send it back. I've never actually heard of that tactic before, believe it or not, so I wonder if anyone has any comments on that.
I've done actually the potato chip bag thing where I had to drive a couple states over and actually put my phone into 2 separate bags so that it shows up somewhere else. So it does act like a bit of a Faraday bag as long as you use 2 potato chip bags. The only downside to doing that is then your phone is going to be really greasy and smell like potato chips for like a couple of weeks after that. But no signal will go in and out of your phone. So that way you can quickly make it disappear, quickly make it reappear somewhere else if you need to, all for under $2.
Yeah, if you're gonna get real crazy, you can put your phone in a microwave. Microwave is a really good place to hide a phone.
Yeah, turn it on as well.
Well, yeah, but if you're, I don't know, I mean, if you've ever had to, if you've ever had your phone go crazy for whatever reason, maybe you got SMS bombed or something, putting your phone in the microwave will, turning it off, but having it in there, it protects from radiation the same way.
And if you need to go real crazy and have an actual conversation with somebody in a room that you are worried about being monitored, even if you don't have a cell phone nearby or you maybe have a microphone nearby or a microphone of some kind nearby. Some people will be tempted to like turn the TV on and turn the TV up real loud so that you can like drown out what you're saying.
All right, guys.
Don't do that.
So everything's show's back on. We're ready to.
Okay, I was going to ask about that, Jack. If you were, I hate to interrupt the flow, but if you're ready,
yes.
let's go through this.
Let's get this done real quick, right? So here we go. This is what's it called? We have AR.
To the demo gods.
So right now, this is just a one-click install for Nextcloud. You can. In fact, run Nextcloud on anything. Oh, come on, really?
Yeah, I'm glad it prompted.
Just
Now we've disappeared. I can't wait till we have the control unit.
Next time I'm just doing this on Windows. I swear, I give it up. It's done. Arch Linux. So.
Or more like you should have pre-recorded this.
Yeah, fuck it, do it live. No, next time I will pre-record this. I promise. I swear, I'll be a good boy.
Jack, how about instead you talk about the general concept of it and then maybe show like the end result?
Okay, so the general concept is you just basically spin up a burner Nextcloud instance, put a SIM card in the burner phone, link the phone. The only thing you put on there is a Nextcloud instance. Link the cat, set it to everything to automatically upload, and then when you're done with it, so password, it's me. So, what's it called?
What are you trying to do now, Jack? Describe it to us.
Okay, so now we're going to install a few basic apps in Nextcloud. Not too many. The only ones that you need. So that's just going to be you to download and enable to FA. Download enable.
Just want to alert right now, armed police in DC are currently assaulting all people, including news people who are trying to survive this.
So so this is controversial. You might want to put phone tracker on your device. I think this could be somewhat important because you will be tracked, but it's more importantly the video will be tracked, so you can kind of pinpoint where the video was taken. If it ever comes out in something like a court of law, like you need to prove where somebody misbehaving was, perhaps a cop. So once what's it called? So this is more or less set up. So now your Cloud Run password should work.
Lewis said that the concept is to maintain anonymity while preserving evidence. Is that correct, Jack?
Yes, mostly. The whole point is you're taking a phone, literally a burner, a disposable phone, which you don't. The whole point is you're going to take a phone that you think might be smashed. You might be smashed. The phone might be smashed. So before it's smashed, it preserves the evidence will be exfiltrated from the scene before it gets smashed. And cut right back to the Zoom meeting because now that the Nextcloud's set up, right? Now that we have what's it called? Now that we have a Nextcloud set up, we have a phone. More specifically, we have a SIM card. Recently bought this SIM card.
While you do that, Jack, Glenn VTX asks, would it be easier to use an SSHF and mount something where the app can save video? Is like to use a thing, for example, on Android?
If you want to do that, fine. The problem is with that one is you're taking this basically a phone into what's essentially a high-risk environment. So the whole point is you're doing this one. My recommendation is not just getting like a phone, is getting like a hard case, like a ruggedized case and a screen protector, because the phone might not make it back. The whole point is you're preparing a phone maybe less for anonymity and kind of more for violent encounter. More for a violent encounter, which you don't care if the phone gets destroyed, it's just that you need the data that needs to get, the data needs to get, not necessarily that you have to preserve the phone, but you have to preserve the data on the phone is kind of more of a priority, is kind of the priority here. So once the data on the phone is kind of preserved, it's one of those. Drop the SIM card. So it should give you a little more confidence if you're planning on being in like a tricky situation. The whole, you know, what's it called? Not just that, your little deterrence that somebody can't just kick your ass and smash your phone.
Lewis said that in theory, using Nextcloud will also allow you to combine multiple POVs from the same location in real time.
It should be able to too.
Phones.
Because here we go.
And I just want to note after this, we'll do a bit of more general discussion. If someone has something to show off, they can. I have something to show off, but I'm willing to go last. So.
Okay, there we go. Let's boot this. So this is actually the easy part now, because F-Droid was mentioned earlier. F-Droid's good because this one I'm running Lineage. Note that you don't have to run Lineage. You don't have to run any special software, which is the cool thing with the phone software, is you don't have to run any special software. Like that's kind of important because like any cell phone will do. Get the what's it called? You also don't need to be running Cloud Run. You don't need to run DigitalOcean. All you need is Nextcloud. Nextcloud has a feature. Oh.
I'm trying to read their name because it's in an odd color, but Amy Chikara said, in their opinion, pass the credentials to someone trusted to change the pass after a certain time if you haven't got a message to them. And someone also noted that about using the SSFS mount, Glenn TBX said, a cop probably wouldn't either understand that and if you destroyed or turned off the phone, the link would sever, though the roaming might not work very well. So what are you doing right now with the phone, Jack?
So right now, just basically ask for a basic SIM card setup. So, what's it called? Just setting up the SIM card right now at the home screen. So now, come on. Opening the web browser. Going, what's it called? Going to droid.org.
Are you using the Nextcloud app on your phone from F-Droid?
Yes.
Okay, that's another thing you can get on F-Droid directly as an app. You can also, I believe, download it possibly, I think, directly off their website, but don't quote me on that. I'm kind of doing the behind-the-scenes stuff here. Does anyone have any updates, or is anyone seeing like social media or listening to radio and want to describe what's going on real quick while Jack configures this with his phone?
Sure, actually, if you don't mind, I can jump in on this one because I'm streaming right now citywide NYPD citywide 1. So right now they're deploying 16 different prisoner vans going over to 41st, 44th, 52nd, 55th, and it sounds like a couple more streets.
Jesus.
So far I'm trying to keep track on the fires everywhere, but it sounds like it's mostly garbage and dumpster fires more than anything else. But the police went incredibly hard tonight in comparison to yesterday, and it seems like there's a big commotion on 55th and Madison. Most of the stores are getting looted up there, so the police are in strong force up there. There's still something going on at Barclays. I'll leave it at that because it just gets more depressing the more I describe.
Well, one of the things that we should probably bring up real quick, because this is something, because at least I'm not sure about anyone else, but because everyone has their own opinions, I'm not going to just due to OPSEC reasons talk about any specific opinions about the NYPD, but we will mention that particularly after 9/11, the running joke that you'll often hear from law enforcement and ex-law enforcement personnel is that there's like X amount of federally like terrorist type dealing branches, like major branches, and the joke is that they're the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the overall Department of Defense, Homeland Security, and the NYPD. That basically the NYPD has so many access to those other divisions and has been upgraded with so many resources that they basically sort of act as like their own independent military, kind of like the way like the CIA is. So that's why you notice, particularly in New York, when they do crackdowns or when they disobey like the state and stuff, or citizens or even their own police officers, that's why it gets pretty crazy, because that's literally how big of an operative organization they are, and how much power they were given carte blanche in the name for security post 9/11.
To add to that point also, one thing I did catch that a lot of people missed on Citywide and a couple of other frequencies are being monitored is that early on yesterday, one of the first calls was made to counterterrorism, aviation, and regular counterterrorism, which is a very hidden off branch of it's like the Sinn Féin of the NYPD kind of thing. And they were one of the first ones that were called yesterday, and today it seems like they doubled their numbers. So like if you go to see like a flight tracker or anything, you'll notice that you only see about 2 to 4 NYPD helicopters, but in reality there's probably about 11 or 12 hovering above anybody in New York right now. A bunch of them are controlled by counterterrorism. It's a scary organization.
Just describe it as the Sinn Féin of...
Yeah.
Like, what?
That's the only way I can think of to describe them. Yeah.
All right,
So now,
I have a.
wait, are you
let me finish
back
this.
to the demo?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have this up here. Nextcloud. It's installed. So like I said, this is not on Wi-Fi. This is purely just on a burner SIM card. Cool thing about Jersey City is like literally they have like phone stores like 3 to every block. You can just walk in. You can just walk in, pay cash, and walk out with a SIM card, no questions asked. It's fucking great. So here we go. Nextcloud as an app is opening. I'm not switching back to Nextcloud on Windows. I'll figure out how to do this better next time, but I'm not going to do it. But if you go under if you go under security on your personal settings and security, there's create a new app password. This is real easy. So I'm just creating one called phone. And on the bottom link, it creates this password, and there's also this. There's a QR code, right? Generates a QR code for the install. So if you notice, there's like a little QR button right here. This is what I'm doing on the phone. So they made it real easy for you. So all you have to do. Or not. Maybe I have to install the QR app.
Anytime a tech person goes, this is going to be real easy, that's when it gets you. So while he's doing that, I just want to read some comments here. Mick Buttkiss, great name, said that we all look good looking, so that's a plus for the stream tonight. So congratulations to everyone here. A lot of people are asking for if after this, if us and Thug Crowd could do write-ups such as the camera, the burner camera, and some of the stuff we talked about step by step. I know DEFCON 201 is going to be doing that throughout the next couple of weeks, so I don't know if Thug Crowd's going to either write up some stuff. If you don't have anything to host write-ups for, by the way, you can always send it to us and we can host it on ours and link back. If not, then just we'll share whatever you guys post.
Yeah, so
we're actually trying to put together some resources for people. We wanted to get some legal defense funds up there. We wanted to grab some other guides and things. So it just takes a bit because there's so much information coming out right now. We've all been trying to gather all the
people and all the power players.
Yep. So we'll definitely be putting something out. We were working on a news show notes, and then this all happened. So yeah, we have a bunch to add to that for sure. Are we still doing this demo here? I wanted to kind of get into the legal stuff now that Fred is here in his race car.
Jack, if you still have to do more stuff on your end, or if your part's going to still take a while, I would like to segue to the legal stuff, and then we'll come back at the end.
We'll come back. I should have
recorded.
I should have recorded
perfectly
this.
right ahead. It's your turn.
Fred, are you here? Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. The sun's in my eyes, so if I'm like at a weird angle, no worries.
Sweet. So anybody who has listened to Thug Crowd before, Fred was on here, Esquiring was on before to talk about cyber law stuff, knows a ton about this stuff, and we want to kind of have him be a part of all this to talk about, just the general sort of like legal stuff that the people, might have misconceptions about, and be here to kind of just give that perspective. So thank you very much for joining us.
Real quick, sorry about that. I hate to interrupt, but one of our people in the chat shared a Twitch stream that maybe we'll raid afterwards. We'll send all of our traffic there, called twitch.tv woke, which apparently has really good active ground footage from activists of what's going on right now. So still pay attention to the stream, but if you want to dual stream it and afterwards you want something to watch, definitely check that out. Sorry about that, continue. I just thought it was very important.
Definitely. Well, thanks for having me. So yeah, there is no shortage of bad information about sort of where the law is on a lot of this stuff. And the good news is I'm happy to debunk and give just some like clearer info on, you know, some really like specific parts of it. The bad news is, first off, it varies from state to state and federal jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So like, I cannot give you a clear, always going to be correct no matter where you are sort of answer on a lot of this stuff, especially in more detail. So I guess for my background, I'm a New York lawyer. I've been doing sort of cybersecurity and privacy law for about, like 6-7 years now. And specifically, probably like the most important thing for folks here is I want to give a little more clarity on what your rights are around device search and seizure, because that is something where I see just mountains upon mountains of bad information, and often bad information that is like emotionally really appealing, stuff where it's like, oh, I wish that was true. So I guess also to clarify, you know, I'm not going to talk about what I want to be correct. I just want to talk about what the law is right now with that stuff. Honestly, like the more good OPSEC you have, the more like careful you are with setup of some of the more technical side stuff that y'all are talking about, the better. The law, as far as what is actually protected, is pretty weak. Keep in mind that the Fourth Amendment is really a limitation on what can be used against you in court. As far as what can be done in an investigation, or even more so in the chaotic environment of a protest or demonstration, there is almost nothing that you're going to be able to assert legally to prevent, you know, your device being taken by the police during a protest. Or if they're there with a search warrant already, there's very little you can do to like prevent something being taken. Most of your legal remedies are retroactive. You know, 6 months, a year, 2 years later, you will have an opportunity in court to say, hey, that wasn't right. But by that point, you know, most of the damage is done. You and whoever else's sensitive data you had on there is exposed. All that. As far as, you know, what is permitted, it is generally, I do not know of any court that has said you are not permitted to film the police. Keep in mind that that may not stop the police from getting aggressive, violent, or taking your property if you try to film them. Again, this is all going to be retroactive. Absolutely, I think someone may have said it earlier on, but if you are using biometric unlocking for convenience on your phone, your tablet, your computer of any sort, turn that shit off if you're doing anything remotely legally questionable. It is still a very evolving area of law. There are some courts that have pushed for extending sort of Fifth Amendment protections to biometric unlocking, but by and large, both with the courts that have dealt with it and the sort of legal theory behind it, the protection on a password that you have memorized is 1,000 times stronger than the protection on a physical action that you can be compelled to perform, like pressing your finger against a fingerprint reader. So absolutely turn off any sort of biometric unlocking. Use strong, unique passwords, because those will be harder to crack in a technical sense, but also if you don't remember the password, it is a lot harder for someone to force you to divulge that, even with the right legal process in place. As far as sort of more protest-specific things, again, a lot of these are common sense, but they're common sense because that's sort of how the law has gone with it. Don't bring anything with you that could like even potentially be construed as a weapon. You know, a pocket knife the size of your thumb is probably not something you want to bring, even though it really isn't harmful. I don't know, what else?
Speaking, okay, so I finally got the demo phone working. I should have recorded this, but you'll see here on the side there's a little hamburger button, and there's a thing called auto upload. It's not even. You might be able to see here. You go to auto upload, right? And there's a what's it called? Once you take the first picture, there's a camera photo, right? And you could go to configure, and then you could turn auto uploading on here in the menu, and from here unselect unmetered Wi-Fi.
I don't know if we can prioritize his screen or not because people want us. Maybe set it to speaker view jack or something
okay,
so you can see it better.
So there we go. This is the settings for like auto upload. You can kind of like auto upload it on the phone. Is once you do that, right? What do you want to do for file exists? You don't want to ask. You want to do rename new version. So you have something that looks like this. You hit save. What's it called? It'll ask you what the phone. Let it run in the background. So basically, the only thing that you basically have on this is basically a camera app and Nextcloud. Nextcloud's automatically set up to configure, and now you can use the camera and the what's it called? Now you can use the camera and the camera to automatically upload when you're done taking pictures. As long as cell phone signals have not been jammed, this will upload it to the burner Nextcloud. For optimal results, you can add a second user on the Nextcloud, perhaps give that login to someone else, set up U2F, 2FA, but just remember you don't have to go too crazy with it. It only has to last the evening. When you're done, you can just download the photos, and you can just download the photos, and when you're done, just basically wipe everything. The cool thing about the cloud is you could just, like what I'm about to do now with this instance, is just burn it. Just go into the digital ocean and just click on destroy, and it's gone. After you've, but yeah, I'm not switching over. But yeah, all of a sudden, as soon as I did it, it automatically uploaded a little picture of my keyboard I just took. So again, it's like this. What Fred just said is the cops might not respect your Fourth Amendment rights. The day of, you might have to argue in court. When you argue in court, it's always going to be good if you have some evidence. The one thing I do know is go into camera and make sure you turn on GPS settings, because if they're going to smash your shit, you might as well have clear evidence of exactly where you were, so you have a bulletproof case. And that's what I had to say, and that's why I set up this meeting.
Okay. Before we move on to other topics, Jack, could you, because it was really complicated and we had like bits in the middle where it dropped out, could you just quickly kind of summarize overall the steps you took from beginning to end to make this, just so in case someone has to like attempt to research to do this, we can do that. And we'll make a write-up. I want you to do that on air.
Okay, so the steps, first of all, is get a burner phone, get a burner SIM card, register either some sort of cloud provider account. Step one is set up Nextcloud. Nextcloud.
Quick question: where would they look for like a burner phone to find that, please?
Burner phone. It's just simple. Just get a used phone, new phone, a relatively cheap phone that is within your means of just being destroyed. And on this burner phone, you are not going to use your main SIM card, main information, or anything. You're just going to put as little information in as possible. They call it a burner phone because it's there to be destroyed. It's there to be disposed of. It's like many of you might not be old enough to remember disposable cameras, but it's a similar concept, and especially with one of these in like a hurry. It's not that big of a loss if if it gets destroyed. So for one of these, for a burner phone, you might have to research the software that you need to run, the chat apps that you need to run, maybe 2FA that you need to run, maybe phones that run Lineage, the phones that support decent encryption. But when you're doing the camera, you really don't. The only thing you really need to do on a camera is set a decent lock screen password, which is important because somebody's going to try to brute force that, and that doesn't. You don't. Don't use your regular pin, whatever you do, because if somebody recovers that, they're going to recover the pin to your main phone. or don't use it one from for an actual burner phone, another burner phone. So what's going to happen is you're just going to have that. So even if it takes them 20 or so minutes to destroy it, to get into the phone, it doesn't really matter how strong it is. The video's already gone. The video's already uploaded, and it's not coming back. Is basically what needs to be done. So the one thing that can be done is once you get back to a safe location, you can log into Nextcloud on the web. Because you added the phone as like an app password, you can just as easily go into security again, click the button, and then just go revoke access on the phone. There's also a neat feature in Nextcloud that says wipe device, where Nextcloud can actually wipe all the wipe some of the data off of a phone. So like once you have the cloud set up, and that's the hard part. Me personally, I just run Nginx and like set everything up manually. But I'm just showed with CloudROM that there's kind of this quasi maybe 1 or 2 click install. You can just click through it in a GUI if you're not that technically inclined. So there, it's just use set up security app password, and you can just kind of QR code with the phone, and it's set up auto upload, and you're good. It's just so it's like I said, it's the whole point is you have a disposable Nextcloud instance, which is a disposable virtual machine and a disposable phone. Now, if I was running one of these in production where violence might actually be necessary, I'd actually get one of those rubber cases and a screen protector. For the sole reason that will probably give you another 30 seconds or a minute for the upload to complete before it gets destroyed. And that's that. Does anybody have any questions? I know I completely butchered that. I apologize.
If they ask questions, they will come up. Thank you, Jack, for all of that. The chat really wants to hear the rest of Fred's legal stuff. They've been cheering for it. They liked what you were talking about, Jack, but they were really, because they were like, Fred was on a roll, so...
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Fred,
I just...
would like to continue with what you were talking about and bring up new topics. I'm going to give you the floor.
Yeah, no problem. I had about sort of 2 other things to cover that are, I don't know, top of my list for like things you should know in a protest type situation. The first is, there's all those like hilarious videos of people like yelling that they don't consent to a search and all that bullshit. The yelling's a little silly. The non-consenting is real. If someone has stopped you and is asking to search a thing, like, probably don't try and physically stop them unless you really like assault charges. But absolutely vocally, absolutely vocally state that you are not giving permission to that. That becomes legally important if there does come a case where you need to challenge that search. And that includes like, casual comments of like, hey, can I look inside your bag? Making it clear that you're not giving that permission can be really important. The other thing is, if you are arrested or detained or facing charges of any sort, please don't try and talk your way out of it. The only appropriate things to say after it becomes clear that you're being arrested is that you want a lawyer, and maybe if they like need a phone number of someone to call, give them a phone number of a family member, a trusted person. Do not try to talk your way out of it. Just nothing good ever comes of it, and there are almost no situations where even a good explanation is going to actually help in the moment.
Yeah, hey Fred, I have a question for you about.
Yeah, ask away.
So, like, I've heard this advice a lot when I have gone to protests in the past, that you should write the number of your lawyer on your arm in Sharpie. What if I don't have a lawyer? Whose number should I write on my arm?
That is an excellent question. So, a lot, especially with protests, a lot of cities have a chapter of the National Lawyers Guild. And this is an organization that sort of a lefty legal organization. They started in the 60s, I think. But they have been doing protest defense since longer than probably most of us have been alive. I'm a member of the New York chapter. I can speak highly of their Mass Defense Committee, which is sort of the protest defense folks. If you search NLG, Nitro Lima Golf, protest defense or mass defense, and like your city name, there's a phone number. I think New York's is 202-679-6018, but don't quote me on that. I'm doing that off memory. But they are the people you want to talk to if you don't have like a lawyer or similar sort of on call. So yeah, they are a good number to have written on you in case you are arrested and can't access, your phone with all your contacts.
Thanks, Fred.
No problem. The other thing to be aware of with sort of arrest and protest situations, don't expect it to be over quickly. I would like both the actual process of the day of and also the case that may result from that. Like, if you are arrested and charged and want to fight that, which is often worthwhile because the charges are fairly minor, so the potential cost is pretty low. Be aware that there will be probably 1 to 2 years worth of delay leading up to an actual trial. It's not like courtroom TV where the trial's tomorrow. Expect a whole lot of delay. Expect to, if you're in New York especially, expect to be making, say, monthly-ish trips for court appearances that will not be very interesting or very important. It is sort of a process to make it a hassle, and it has that effect. If you are arrested, whether it's through the National Lawyers Guild or through a public defender in the court there, they're great, but they're people to, in a privileged private setting, talk to about any of the specific risks or specific questions you have. They are also the people whose lives you will make easier if you do not talk to the police in anything but the bare necessities of asking for a lawyer during the period between when you were detained and when you are brought into court for arraignment. I'll stick around, so if you have any other sort of legal flavored questions, I am happy to jam on those a little, but those are kind of the quick and dirty sort of protest law 101 tips.
Actually, I have a question. So it's kind of different over in the States compared to here, but should you actually say no comment or just shut your fucking mouth, not say anything?
At what point and to who?
After you've been arrested and you're in custody.
I want to talk to an attorney is a good term, and actually this is an important point. The request for a lawyer has to be made quote unquote unequivocally. There's a really obnoxious case, I forget from where the person said something like, "Oh, do I need a lawyer, dog?" And the court, I think this got appealed, I forget all the details, but because the request was casual, the argument was that wasn't a valid request for a lawyer. So you should request an attorney vehemently and clearly in terms that any idiot could understand. Other than that, and saying no if they are asking for permission to search your belongings, there's really not much else that is worth saying. I mean, it rarely pays off to be overly antagonistic in those situations. So, common sense applies. If they're asking if anyone needs to use the bathroom, the answer is not, "I want my fucking lawyer." The answer is yes or no. But if they're asking about what happened, what you did, who you are, why you were there, yeah, those are not questions they should be asking you once you've asserted your request for an attorney. In some states, they can require that you turn over some form of ID. I think that's still the law in New York. I'm not totally positive because I haven't looked in a year or two. But sometimes in some states, check your local laws. Sometimes they are able to require you to provide photo identification of some sort. But yeah, really, other than saying no to searches and asking for a lawyer, there's not much else you can say that can actually do you any good.
So, Fred, I have a question here, and this is a question that was also asked in the chat too. So there's people that we've seen tons and tons of videos of people being like, who are just walking around, like who are just being peaceful and getting assaulted by police officers on camera, multiple angles, right, live. And we're also seeing cops that have their badge numbers covered up, so you're not even able to actually identify them. What sort of recourse do you have as a citizen if you are, this goes without not just like, or this isn't like if you're over there antagonizing police and like hitting them first, but if you're just sitting there or walking or doing whatever and you get assaulted by a bunch of police officers with no badge numbers, but you have a ton of video evidence, what sort of recourse do you, or would there be?
So
there's a question I'm going to relay.
Cool. So absolutely keep that video evidence, and once you get to a point where you have an attorney assigned or appointed, tell them about that, and they'll want to see it too. The bad news is you have really very little recourse in the moment. If a cop decides they're going to beat you up for no reason, there are very few things you can do other than get beat up that will help, that will end the situation. Certainly, during the Occupy, I had some cases where people, were beaten up by the police, and because their arm flew up and maybe tapped the officer in the ankle as they were falling, they got, instead of just a disorderly conduct violation charge, they got an assault against a police officer felony charge. It's a very common tactic for police to, or for prosecutors to overcharge based on a police report that, is totally made up, but is trying to cover their own asses for being overly violent. So definitely hold on to the video. If you don't have badge numbers because they're covered, at a certain point, there will be exchanges of discovery between your attorney and the prosecutor, and those hopefully would include photos of the police by which you could point them out or compare them to the video or photo evidence you have. The other thing to be aware of, and I saw this tip from someone else on the internet. This is not my original hot tip, but if you have video or photo of the police car or van or whatever vehicle they got out of, the combination of time and the police reg number or car number on the squad car is another tool that can be used to identify them potentially. So at some point in the future, you will have the opportunity to show that video evidence, or for your attorney to show that video evidence either to the prosecutor in a negotiation or to a jury at trial. And especially if acquitted of that, there are absolutely civil rights attorneys who make their living off of suing the police because of them being overly violent in those sort of situations. So definitely hang on to that video evidence. In the moment, there's not much else to do other than realize how much that sucks. But there are sort of procedural points in the process between arrest and trial, at which point, yes, that will be incredibly important evidence to have of what actually happened.
Hang on. Good stuff.
Yeah, we were actually getting a bunch of questions, and I want to ask two here, and I'll ask in order for everyone to respond. First of all, one of our people in live chat asked, once you are arrested, and if the law states you must provide ID, is it really going to hurt your case if you refuse?
So I can only speak to New York on this because every state does these things a little bit differently. The most common thing that I've seen in New York is not you've been arrested and then asked for an ID and then have gotten into more trouble. It's more often you're stopped for something, and if they can't think of anything else better to arrest you for, if you don't have an ID or you refuse to provide it, they you'll see people arrested for that, even though there was no other actual crime going on. So sorry, it's kind of a non-answer, but hard to say in any individual person's situation. The other thing, while we're on the topic of IDs, if you are a person who does not have U.S. citizenship, the potential cost and unpleasantness and complication of being arrested at a protest is very different. I would strongly recommend talking to an immigration attorney, or like even calling up like an immigration law nonprofit that might be able to give some advice on your specific situation. Just be aware that like there are risks to, like, if you're on like a student visa, there are risks to that visa based on your charges.
Okay. Also, someone also posted a link to Wikipedia for the stop and identify status, because people did note that different states have a charge called failure to identify. That's why that question was asked. The other question that's out there, Jack kind of answered it in chat, but I think they want more of a legal answer, is does having a burner phone itself amount to any sort of violation when you're out in public in trying times like this?
So the like strict sort of formal legal answer is, I don't know of any law anywhere in the country that would make it like some kind of crime to have a phone that is, you know, purchased with cash and registered with like made up account credentials.
So here's the thing is though, like this isn't made up account credentials. I've told 0 lies to activate this phone. Just walked into a store in Jersey City, put cash on the table, and said I want one of these, and I got one of these. So the cop asks you. I mean, now you're the legal expert, but like, you know, I was saying
City's very much fortunate enough to be able to do that also.
Okay, yeah, some many places that doesn't fly, but there's literally like nothing here. The cop goes, "What's that?" It's a cell phone. What's in it? A SIM card. I paid for cash. Why? Because I don't know. It was right there. I needed one like right now. I mean, there's not really. I mean, it's 100% legal.
Exactly. Like the phone itself,
store,
there's nothing there that would get you in trouble. If like, certainly, you know, think of these things sort of, I don't know, one of the things that I think about when I'm thinking about like, how does this look, is if this were being like presented to a jury by a prosecutor who thought I should go to jail, how would that look? So like, no, the phone, like having a phone like that on its own, totally fine. If you're arrested for something else and have that type of phone on you, yeah, of course, they're going to try and make that into, you know, a point that sounds shady or bad or nefarious. And that may help, that may hurt. You know, I'm not any of y'all's lawyer. I cannot give you like specific legal advice to your exact situation, but my kind of knee-jerk feeling is, on balance, it is safer to bring a burner phone to a protest than to bring, you know, your phone with all of your texts and emails and nudes and what have you to that same protest. I'd much rather lose something with nothing else on it and have the police go through that and have my like more personal sensitive data safely at home.
Here's the big one that you can get. You'll always get the cops on this one. I guarantee you, they'd be like, "Okay, there's no your personal information. It's not your real phone." I'm like, "Yeah, I was concerned about violence. Just tell them you were afraid that one of those Antifa thugs was gonna interrupt your peaceful protest and kick your ass and take your phone." And all those
Someone
thugs,
mentioned
you know,
in
I'm
chat
scared.
that not to interrupt, but that you don't have to like kind of. There's no real institution of like what makes it a burner phone. So like probably most wouldn't notice. Like it could just be your phone.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing on a burner phone that isn't on every other regular phone.
I know, but I'm talking about like layman people. They might not even realize that. You know, just say, no, I just take texts from my boss. You know, he gave me this phone. That's all they need to know. It doesn't have to be a burner phone. You know, let them figure that out.
Yeah, probably don't tell the cops it's a burner phone. But like, if the question is, you know, if they've taken your phone and have said like, hey, why is there nothing on here? I just got this phone is a both honest and complete answer to that question.
Or just don't answer the question.
That is probably the better option, yeah.
Yeah.
Alternatively, just throw the phone away.
I do want to make a note that just from my perspective as that's someone who does lock picking as a hobby and as a lock sport for entertainment and fun, and I have a show about that. I say the same thing to people. In my opinion, the thing about burner phones is like what I say to people about about owning lockpicks. People always ask if it's legal, and I always say, look up your local area. But in pretty much most states, like almost all states and principalities, it's not illegal. However, I do want to let people know that if you look at what you're carrying and it seems suspicious, it's probably going to seem suspicious to a cop, no matter what sort of circumstantial stuff around there. Like, you could literally have been gardening and then go to pick up your son at Little League, but if a cop pulls you over and sees that you have a shovel and surface dirt and a baseball bat, they're going to wonder what you're doing, even though you didn't do anything wrong. And same thing with lockpicks, that even though you could have explained you're a tool member, or you're in some sort of like competition thing, or you're like a license, and if you do show it to them, locksmith, they will still kind of question about this, because that's what police officers often do. And that in these sort of situations, they're even more inclined to be very scrutiny and picky about what they think they can kind of get you for. I just want to ask another question in chat here. Someone asked, on the point of citizenship, is permanent residency on par with a citizen, or would it be treated as a foreigner in terms of a background for someone out in this sort of thing?
So I am not qualified to talk in detail on immigration law. I just don't know the background well enough. No, it's a great question.
It is.
My recommendation would be, like, go talk to, if you have access to an immigration attorney, talk to them. If you are able to locate like an immigration law nonprofit of some sort in your area, give them a call. A lot of them have just like question helplines. If you can find neither of those things, if you can find a like nearby National Lawyers Guild chapter, they're a good place to ask that question to, not because they'll have an answer, but because they have like a network of lawyers who they can reach out to and maybe put you in touch with someone. But like, definitely, like, if you are anything other than full US citizen, it's worth getting that like individualized advice on that, or at least finding like an FAQ for your local area.
Another question from the chat is, what kind of race car are you in right now?
So this is gonna make all sorts of awful noises.
Yeah, that was the joke question. I love that.
Oh, let's see. I don't know if this will work, but this is my like.
Yo, pimpin'.
It's an 86 MR2 with a big old turbo on the back.
That's dope.
That's a lawyer cash for you.
Tell them the truth, Fred. This is your grocery car.
It is my grocery car.
Get the eggs in for him. Get the eggs in for him.
With a full roll cage.
Nexus just said he's doxing his race car.
Yeah, I am.
Fred, what's your license plate? You've been using your phone while driving, so gonna have to call a lawyer on you. That's it.
I've got my hands-free
I will
device.
say after this, though, if anyone has any other topics they want to bring up, because again, I do have stuff to talk about, but I'm more than willing to go last on this. So, was there any other things we wanted to bring up or go over? I know we wanted to talk about Tor at some point. So,
Actually, I just want to bring up something quick, because one of the big things that seems to be happening right now is that everybody has a Baofeng radio, right? Because as a couple of you know, like, I've been streaming the citywide stuff, and I do a lot of SDR work and so forth. But one of the things that nobody bothers to ask is, like, how can I communicate with my friends that also have a Baofeng in a legal fashion? So people forget that a lot of the frequencies that you want to use or that you listen on, you have to have a ham license, you have to have an amateur radio license to be able to broadcast on them. But just a quick note, there's 5 frequencies you can use, which are called the MERS frequencies.
why? What's going on? Sorry, our roommate's getting a call for an update on something. Keep talking, I'll update if something comes up. Sorry.
So you have 5 frequencies available to you, which are called the MERS frequencies, or what MERS stands for is multi-use radio service. And those can be fully toned up, and there's 5 frequencies that you and your friends can actually sit on. And if you set a PL tone to all of them, this is how I've actually been communicating with actually a ton of people. Like, I have 2 separate radios. One is a Baofeng, because I believe everybody should have one. This is my Yaesu FT 3DR. Then I have 4 separate SDRs that are going right now also for streaming purposes. But you can actually set a PL tone So you can sort of lock down the channel, the MERS channel that you're using. They're legal to use. You do not need an amateur license to use them. And you can actually use your Baofeng with still listening on the A side and communicating on the B side with these radios now. So just for those of you that need to communicate with anybody who's protesting, with anybody who's doing anything, and if you guys have your $20 or $30 Baofeng, just look up MERS, look up the multi-user radio service. So like that, you can actually use legal frequencies. Because also, if you're sitting on non-legal frequencies, and I say non-legal if you're not licensed, you can actually get in a lot of trouble for broadcasting on non-licensed frequencies. There was recently a case of someone in New York City who kept on transmitting on repeater. He wasn't licensed. It's like a $20,000 fine and potential of probation and all this other stuff, all just because you wanted a broadcast on a frequency. So just look that up. It's actually really cool to use, free for everybody, and now you can use your Baofeng for a little bit more than just listening and as a paperweight.
But
That's
I
all.
mean, you're already out of protest. You're already probably breaking some kind of law. Just broadcast, nobody really cares. It's not like the FCC is going to be down there fucking,
Actually, the FCC does does monitor a lot of these things, not specifically for this, but for other things. So all this other stuff that winds up happening, because every time you do a transmission, if you're licensed, if you have a ham license, is you have to broadcast your call sign at the end of every transmission and every 10 minutes. So every single time that you communicate, you are actually letting the world know who you are. So when you're not doing that, they can hit you with additional charges if you're being arrested for other stuff, if they can pinpoint that that's your radio and that you were doing the transmissions or jamming frequencies with your Baofeng or whatever. It's sneaky the way that they do it, but
I hate to be an ass, but I'm trying to hear. I hate to be an ass. I'm trying to hear. Yeah, just go on the other side, communicate, do what you need to do. Sorry for that weird thing. We're all going through stuff right now.
It's all right.
I just want to point out, because someone said some of the people in this chat from Europe or around the world here. So if any of them want to get to topics before they have to leave, please let us know and we'll get into them right away, because we're doing this broadcast for a while, even after Thug Crowd and stuff leaves. And in advance, for all the people from Europe or everyone else who has to leave early, thank you for being the opportunity to tell us to be in on this. This is a real honor, and I'm glad that you're working with us in order to try to make our community more better and safer.
Yeah, man, thanks for having us. Yeah, a lot of us here aren't in the US, and it's pretty early or late for some of us here. So yeah, I mean, we kind of gone over a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, like, definitely, if you are really serious about your privacy, talking, in general, definitely, host your own stuff. We talked about Nextcloud, we talked, Matrix, we use Matrix, easy to self-host, Jitsi. Like, having control of your own infrastructure is a really good way to keep your communications private. And so the main point we wanted to hammer home is to diversify your communications and to self-host as much as you can for yourself or your small group of people. If you have a small community, maybe you live in a neighborhood where you are good friends with everybody around, you want to say host a VPN service, something like that for you guys to use, and you trust the people who are on there, do that over something else. Like, basically having more community run and community focused infrastructure is really key for a lot of this stuff. And if you are keeping things in a very small cluster of people for organizing or communicating, it's very, very useful to do that. So I would just recommend anybody to explore those options, explore Matrix, explore Jitsi, explore all the different other things you can do. Have channels that you can work or you can talk with people in your local community over the radio that you've predetermined. Having those kinds of alternate forms of communication is what's going to be, it's the beauty of the time that we live in now, because it is scary as fuck that there's surveillance, there's all sorts of crazy shit that can be done for your for all your communications. But we also have the ability to, with very, very cheap infrastructure, to be able to actually have our very own encrypted chats that are community oriented. So that's basically my big thing, is just we live
in a very kind of cool era where we can get a lot of technology used for really cheap, and if you kind of know the even basics of it in and out, you can set up a lot of your own stuff instead of having to go through middlemen. I do want to put out there real quick that no guarantees, but one of the things we're probably going to talk about with Thug Crowd and everyone in here is that we've been wanting to, as a Electronic Frontier Alliance member, as DEFCON 201, been wanting to do a show about privacy and securing people, and this is a very appropriate time to do it. So I don't know if, like, I don't want to do this like every week. It'd be amazing, but we can't do it because everyone's busy, or not even once a month. But I definitely have a feeling we'll probably end up doing this at least a couple of times throughout our experience right now. So thank you for showing up there. Does anyone else want to say anything?
Oh yeah, there's just like a lot of stuff that's really cool for self-hosting. There's like a wave of new projects that are like kind of like one-click deployments for like self-hosting your own VPN stuff and all that. But yeah, I say that it's also like not only is it like good for privacy reasons, but it's also like they're just fun things to do. Like it's generally fun and just put on a resume, etc., etc.
Can you elaborate on some of these projects, if you could, for ourselves and for our audience?
So being able to, if you can, I think Nathan talks about this in one of his like skill learning videos, being able to say I managed and was able to provision a, matrix server or, XMPP, the forces OTR, you're able to launder these skills into basically having them as saying, I did this for my community, for activists, I did all of this. It also helps you later on in the line doing your job. But basically it boils down to use encrypted messengers, only talk to people you trust about crimes. Don't do crimes in the first place, but actually do. Use Signal, use Tor, support raiseup.net. If you want to talk to people, use Jitsi. Self-host everything, don't trust anyone. And that's it, really.
If I want to add about Signal, something which I wish we're on right now, but they've been really busy, the Tech Learning Collective had to point out, is that it's also fairly non-complicated to get throwaway digital phone numbers, like making fake Google accounts and making a Google Voice and other techniques like that in order to get Signal. So, because one of the issues a lot of people have with Signal is the fact that you need a phone number, but you can basically almost use any phone number. And as an alternative, in my experience, for something that doesn't use a phone number, I have more, but Wicker, aka Wicker Me, I think it's spelled WICKR, is one where you just make an account, and they're very good with end-to-end encrypted with a lot of features. But Signal is really good. I always say that as a default. It's simple to use too.
Yeah.
So sorry, Jim. Another thing I want to hear real quick about burner phone number.
So does anybody have a good guide for a burner phone? Does anybody have like more, who actually does like more activism?
I'm
I
shocked
kind of have
you
my
didn't
own.
hear that.
Not here.
Oh, Long Island. Okay.
I mean, does anybody like? Because I have very specific.
Sorry about that. We're discussing things everywhere else.
So does
It's really bad out there.
Does anybody have any good tips for like actually using a burner phone? Like I kind of have my ideas, but does anybody actually like have like a battle tested burner phone where it was a burner was actually captured and it kind of like saved your ass of what setup's known to work? All right, well, the other one I was going to go into is Tor, the Onion router. It's good, but it has limitations.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too about Tor. Okay. Do we want to talk about Tor? Because someone said use I2P, so I'm like, we might as well talk about.
Okay,
like,
so I2P. I think that was a joke answer. It's funny. What's it called? You can use I2P. Nobody who's listening in will ever figure it out.
It's past 2016. We can't tell what your jokes anymore. So
yeah. So the joke I'll make is you can use I2P because no one doing surveillance on you will be able to figure it out, and you won't either. So, and it's also secure because there's really nothing on it because it's a real pain in the ass. So Tor is good for a lot of things. Tor is good if you want to do like anonymized searches. Tor is last time I researched about 5 years ago, started with money by the federal government. Tor is still mostly funded by the federal government. Now, this is not that that's inherently a bad thing. The internet was also a DARPA project, and a lot of the other technologies that you use were initially funded by the United States government, but developed rather independently by independent-minded people. But one of the things you have to mark about Tor is Tor flags you as a Tor user, first of all, and the big one is it does flag you as a Tor user, which can be a little discerning because if shit really hits the fan, like I said, now we're starting to see curfews, and then the United States government just wakes up one day and says, well, we don't need Tor anymore, and then everyone else is still using it, you might get caught in the crossfire when they start cracking down on Tor users. So if you're using Tor right now, the U.S. government, you'll be blending into their network, making things easier to them. So the federal government, like the NSA, has a vested interest in making sure your Tor node stays up, because they route traffic. Because the more routes traffic through it, the more anonymous it becomes, the more it's hard to pinpoint one of their connections. Because if only the government used Tor, basically you'd see every Tor connection was the government, and that'd be fucking easy. So now you have other people on there, and especially those people are activists, and how can these people be working for the government? And it's fine, and it works for what you need to do, so obviously go ahead and use it. But from a couple years ago, I used to this blog, and one of the things I figured out, European Police Convention, Europol. People go, Europol doesn't have a arrest power, European police. No, but they do make recommendations, and it is all the member organizations of Europol, not Interpol, Europol, are actual police organizations with power of arrest. So what happens is Tor gets brought up, and this is right in the time when the Silk Road is starting to get big, and they say, okay, so if this is just criminals on here, we have these criminals here, why can't we just flag all Tor users, just arrest Tor users? And basically what happened is the NSA actually stepped in and says, we need this. Basically says, don't do this, we need this network, without being specific, or the specifics weren't published in the article. So that's kind of powerful. They're going to step in and prevent other agencies from arresting Tor users. So as Fred might have mentioned earlier, I mean, you don't necessarily have to be breaking the law, but because the way Tor nodes route, it's almost guaranteed that something illegal, probably child porn, has passed through your Tor node at one point. If you run an exit node, be prepared that some real nasty shit will come out of it, because some real nasty people, in addition to activist work, in addition to kind of free speech, what we really no one cares about is some dude buying small amounts of marijuana. There's going to be people who do some really nasty shit and are going to use that. And if you're on a network, chances are that your network will inadvertently be used for that. And again, the way it's mitigated is best practice is you leave from an exit node, you leave a page and say this is an exit node.
One of our members, one of the people in chat said using a custom Tor file to specify or reject exit nodes or by location is good to know.
It is.
Tor bridges too.
Tor bridges too. So that's really good, especially if you're on the side of the entry node. There's a lot you can do on the entry node that you're not really going to get caught. But for Tor to work, it needs exit nodes. I will just say that right now. An exit node has to exit somewhere. So they don't have to get every last Tor user, and they won't. So the thing is though, they don't have to. They just have to make a show out of knocking a few heads, and it will scare 90% of the network until it shrinks enough to not be usable. That's it's like I said. That's all they really need to do. Another project of mine is I actually go, I'm still writing a slide deck, and this is how I kind of go searching through Onion Land. I kind of use this program called Yacy, and a small web service that just enumerates all of Onion space, and I kind of spider Onion page, and I go looking for random Tor sites. And the shocking part about Tor is that a lot of people need to be frank with is there's more. The one real shocking thing about Tor is you run into more child abuse than you'd really care for. So that kind of gives you an impression that those people are.
Someone actually brought up that mostly the Tor's mostly CP and markets. So.
Yeah, it's one of those markets. In my
opinion, IRC is half Russian hacker networks and half like people's websites from 1994. But that's a whole other topic right
or maybe
there.
it's like me.
Does anyone have any comments besides Jack about using Tor or the good or negative side effects of Tor? I guess no one does.
Does anybody have anything else?
I want to say one last thing. If you want to take a look at what a compromised exit node looks like, I just dropped a link in the chat. It's hosted on Pornhub, so it wouldn't get taken down. But we found a compromised exit node one time, and we were watching it because it was leaking like straight to like a web port. But yeah, definitely. I want to thank you guys for having us. I'm gonna jump off.
All right. Well, thank you for showing up. I want to thank everybody who shows up. Who showed up. Was on Scam. What's cool. Especially big shout out to Thug Crowd. Big shout out to Fred, our lawyer, because absolutely invaluable.
Remember, even after everyone goes, we're still going to be running this for a bit. So
yeah.
But I guess people are still around here. Does anyone else want to make any comments here?
Thank you for having us. Good night. Be gay, do
Good
crime.
night. Thank you for showing up. Being part of this.
Be gay, do crime. See y'all. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Be gay, do crime.
I think it just might be us now.
I'm gonna hop off also. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thanks for showing up.
This is good. So actually, I'll probably use this bit to show off my thing if I can. Again, I kind of wish we had more time at the beginning. Again, I want to look into seeing if we can do this like multiple times, but that's something we'd have to talk with the crowd. But I think this is something most people would like to see. My thing was going to be about, as important as it is getting out there to go out and protest, it's also really important to. Sorry, I just need a sip of water here. It's very important to also like how you're going to mine information from the internet, and particularly securing yourself online, like if you're looking up Twitter or checking email or messages. So I wanted to go very quickly on some browser stuff. And before, someone just said be gay, do crime. It's funny because it is Pride coming up, but actually Pride basically now got canceled, but it's here in spirit. So, but before we go into that, I'm going to try to attempt to screen share on the Zoom chat, and I'm actually going to go into our Tor here, because we do have a Tor website, and to note about the whole, like, it's mostly CP and dark markets, I kind of want to show a counter example for that. So let's see if I can do this. Here we go. Okay. So the first thing I'm actually going to go to is this. There we go. So yeah, this is actually, believe it or not, this is what's called Invidious. This is one of the more common links. Just want to give a quick tour. Invidious, you can actually find on the ClearNet. It's called invidi.us. And there's an Onion version of it as well. And basically what it does is it mirrors everything that's on YouTube. And because it's a mirror, there's no ads in the video and there's no tracking software. And it's designed peer-to-peer, so people host... Oops, someone just bumped me out for some reason.
I'm just trying to focus on the video. So go ahead, share it again. Sorry.
Okay. So, just going to try to do that again. So so like we have our own because we have a Twitter, YouTube. We can also find us on Invidious, and this is a great way again to use Tor and the way it does its onion layering to view videos on the internet. If I do a back space here, and Tor is normally a little slow, but we are directly plugged in. I guess we're avoiding our mature content here. We do have a onion portal right now that we're still working on because due to the nature of the way onions are set up, our current code is a little difficult to port over. So right now we have this giant splash page where it says our meetings. And one of the things we want to focus on when we do darknet stuff, and I'm just showing this as an example, is that we're trying to make as much as we can exist on Tor. So while there's a ton of ClearNet sites, we also want to highlight the Tor versions of those sites as well as just good resources that are unique to Tor. So for example, a lot of people don't realize that in the upper left corner, if it properly loads, because sometimes these links go down, DEFCON and DEFCON groups. Yep. DEFCON groups, they're probably updating right now, normally has a .onion. It's the onion v3. That if the gobbledygook is longer, that's a v3 onion. So right now they're kind of updating now. So the cool thing is that when you go to our thing, we have this whole thing down here called Tor and Hacker Resources, where this is for people, and it's a resource that I've been building up over time that we have on our website, on our Tor page, where if you just downloaded Tor and you're our first website you get to, and you have no concept of where to go on Tor, this would have like base links to like, in terms of concept, like there's no like drug markets or anything. It's all just safe utility stuff that you would normally use on a ClearNet browser that you're currently using for Tor. I think the only ClearNet thing we have here under this is to check to see if Tor is running. So even though that's usually in your bookmarks, a lot of people have a hard time to find it. They can just click on our thing and check. And there's a lot of things you can find on Tor. There are different like hacker group websites here. Net Diaries is a computer hacker podcast, and I think their onion's always slightly behind, but if I get it to load, you can basically listen to various hacker stories of conventions and darknets and prehistory and current hacker projects, such as like the stuff that we're doing, even though we don't have a Darknet Diary episode on here, online through, I hate when the control thing happens. Here we go, through Tor. PrivacyTools.io, the resource I had before, if you scroll all the way down their ClearNet site, they have their own onions, so you can view directly through Tor. And you have so many different resources. You have Rise Up, which has a lot of different, they're run by fellow hacker activists and provided their loads. They have a lot of resources for people out there for privacy and stuff, such as running decently to really good encrypted email that works very similar to Google Mail, or to use VPN or secure chat systems. Basically, like all this stuff that Google normally would do, Rise Up also provides on there. Proton Mail, which is a really good mail client, also has that on there. Something I wish we kind of brought up earlier is there's a thing called Global Leaks that N Commander was involved in, and actually gave a talk about hackers on planet Earth 2 years ago. And Global Leaks allows you as a journalist or someone that if you see something I'm reporting, whether you're a blogger or a vlogger or CNN or Fox News or whatever reporting platform you're on, you can find a list of these secure drops, which have different press organizations run by the Freedom of the Press Foundation, which is also a great group. So they have all these different ones here. The one we link to is the one to 2600, which is a quarterly hacker magazine, and you can anonymously submit stuff that you find. So, for example, if you're out there doing activist stuff, that is a great project for you to use. I hear typing, Jack. Is there anything you wanted to update me on, or like, do you want me to continue a bit?
Keep going.
Okay, so there's a bunch of different stuff here, and this is going to be real quick with the onion part. Another good thing here is you have PGP server that's mirrored by Enron. You had Zero Bin, which previously I think kind of went down for a day, so I don't know if that's going to actually load, but Zero Bin is a concept where it's a open source paste bin, or a place where you can paste text information and share it. And they use a 256-bit AES encryption for that, and you can access that directly through Tor. Onion Share, which is something I think maybe Jack has it, but it's a great utility for sharing things peer-to-peer through Tor. There's just so many resources. Search engines like Candle, which searches Tor itself, or Search, which is the same way you have that peer-to-peer decentralized, I'm trying to remember what the utility was called, but same way you have that that decentralized service I talked about before. Search, spelled with an X at the end, is a decentralized search engine. Think of DuckDuckGo, but unlike DuckDuckGo, where their servers are based in America, so they're under what's called the Five Eyes, or basically intel sharing countries, and there's a bigger one called the 14 Eyes. Search, everyone hosts their own version of Search, and then they all communicate with each other. So if someone takes this onion down for search, all the other searches are still there, and anyone can generate one. Therefore, this is a search engine that's technically impossible to take off the internet. We were mentioning chat before about OSs. Cube's OS and Hardened BSD are two, one's a free BSD clone, the other is based off of Fedora Linux, are really good privacy security stuff, and you can access their website through Tor. I think we might talk about OSs later. But anyhow, if you go to our main our onion here on the splash page, we have a whole list of resources on the dark web that's not just CP and darknet markets. So even though that's very much, when you search around, seems like the case, I just wanted to show a counter element of that, something that we're doing. Did you want to say anything first before I quickly go into like the Firefox browser stuff, or are we good? Also, I'm going to type in chats right now that if anyone has any questions for us right now about what is going on and browser safety and privacy, sometimes they call it in the UK, to please let us know in chat. So I guess we're going to ramble about this for a bit right now. So if I can change here, let's go to Firefox. Let's see, did it show up? I think I have to share it in a different way now. Yeah, I have to share it in a different way. So just hang on, everyone. I'm going to share that over if I can. So we're going to new share. Here we go, and I'm going to kind of go back and forth about this. This is going to be a much shorter version of a longer talk I do as part of the EFA about browsing the internet privately and securely. So I'm just going to go through it. First of all, a little bit of background about myself. I'm one of the co-founders of DEFCON 2.1 along with G.I. Jack, who just ran off to take a bathroom break. I've been involved, as you can see, with the hacker community for a long, long time, being involved with the 2600 org. I was one of the phone losers, which is prank phone calls and doing phone freaking back in the day. I've done activist stuff with the Yes Men, and even though it says tool member in progress, I am a tool member now. I teach people how to pick locks for education and also for entertainment. I don't endorse any criminal activity with that. If you do that, that's completely up to you. I did not recommend that for you. Just going to check the chat for 2 seconds here. And let's see. Someone had any questions here, said, going to talk about IP tables and transparent proxies. As soon as I'm done with this, and this will only probably take like 5 to 10 minutes max, we'll go through this we'll talk about that. I think maybe Jack has some comments on that. So I don't know if this was mentioned earlier, but something when involved with privacy and security, especially in this current time, is you're trying to balance between how secure you are as well as like how of ease of use. Because for example, there is a darknet out there that's known as GNU-net. And while it's very privacy and Libre centric, as anyone can tell you who works on that project, it is not easy or user friendly to use. So that's kind of the balance we have to do there. That's why, for example, I recommend Proton Mail often as an email, because they're a company that has a really good track record and still does. And what I love about them is that, like, you download from the F-Droid or Google Play Store their app for your phone. It works exactly like the way Gmail does. So if you had someone on Gmail, show them Proton Mail, it works exactly like the same layout and everything, and they get used to that. That's what we're kind of looking for here. Another issue that you can be worried about is putting too much security on something or a browser to the point where they can basically fingerprint identify you. Basically, your device, or in this case, your browser, your utility, is so unique that now you stand out from the crowd. So anyone snooping in, such as law enforcement or other unscrupulous people, will now begin to target you. So we're going to kind of, if I can skip here, go past the serve stuff. So the thing we're going to be looking for in a browser, and I think by looking at the current browser you can get a hint here, is we want something that's usable for everyone, something that is very common. So again, that you're not so unique as a browser that you're kind of more identifiable. We want to try as much as we can to lean to open source, because if you can audit someone's source code, that's more of a reliability thing of that, yes, they're not sneaking in trackers and stuff behind your back while you're updating stuff, and I will read chat in a moment. We're looking for something that you will form to you. So we want something that's flexible enough that will suit your threat model. I don't know if this was brought up earlier. Thank you, Jack. You might want to scroll that to the side where the other side of the chat is. I don't know about if we talked about this earlier, but there's a whole thing called threat modeling, where everyone's situation is unique. Like, for example, a lot of people pile security concepts onto people without realizing that I mean, maybe they are now, but not everyone is Edward Snowden being a high-profile target that every government agency wants. But there are people out there who get targeted more than usual. Some people are in different countries, such as the Eurozone and the EU, so their privacy laws might change. So we want something that will be flexible for them that they can mold. Again, with the open source, we want something that's verifiable and transparent and mainly reliable. We don't want to use a program that, despite its best efforts, is so unstable that it's just prone to crashing and breaking and having bug errors all the time. So I'm going to jump ahead a bit and tell you the browser that might shock some of you that I recommend. And that browser is going to be Firefox. And the text is small, don't worry about the text. I will explain why. Firefox still covers all of these. Mozilla themselves are a little weird, but in terms of the product they make with default Firefox, you have a lot there. For example, it is usually the second or third most popular browser out there. It's something that's a known entity. It is open source. You can audit most, if not all, of its code. It's something that Mozilla updates every time. You can get nightly, which are preview builds, or a developer version if you want to make your own resources and apps for. Particularly since the number 70 update, even though there's some caveats, and I'll get to those in a moment, there's a lot of built-in privacy functions that Mozilla's been putting into Firefox. Basically, kind of to differentiate themselves from other browsers, because everyone's trying to do a gimmick. Firefox's gimmick is simply, we want to be known as like the most secure thing that you can trust and rely on. I will mention Brave in a moment. And we also have here an extensive use of open source add-ons, and here's a key, that do not need a Firefox account to load. Some of the security services do use Firefox, but any of the stuff I'm going to tell you to add extensions, anything you edit, you don't need to make an account. I already see one question. We are pretty much going to get into that right away. I just want to make one joke here, because we're going to go through a couple of browsers that people recommend all the time, and it's very short, that you don't use. In fact, it's kind of easier to list browsers you should use than browsers you should use. Now, I will note, some of this stuff might be a little controversial, but what I'm putting out here is that, and I will make a note, there's some browsers that they have their mind in a good place and that they are good, and some of them are actually decent alternatives to what I'm going to propose here. But to note that a lot of these don't have the flexibility that Firefox has, and sometimes they have things that you might not even realize are security threats in the first place. Let me just check the chat for half a moment. Okay, I'm going to go on. So first of all, something that you might recognize in Enterprise, Internet Explorer. Just please, no, just please do not use that. There's just too many security stuff in that. If you're using Internet Explorer, you are definitely doing it wrong. Now, the thing that I notice in chat a lot, someone mentioned, is Brave. Now, here's the thing about Brave. I think TechLore put it the best way, which is, if you want a browser, although I do dispute this, that you don't want to configure a lot, that is used for, and I hate this term, normies, Brave, and here's the key word, is a decent alternative. It's based on the Chromium engine, so it's based off of Chrome and that sort of rendering engine. They stripped most, if not all, of the tracking stuff that Google has out of it. They so far have a decent track record when it comes to overall privacy stuff. And even though sometimes I feel like there's some feature creep and bloat, they do have some useful stuff in there, such as being able to open a private tab that automatically connects to Tor if you have Tor running and stuff like that. I have friends who work on that, like Bcrypt, who is a working accomplice of mine. She does really great work, and she works at Brave, and she tries her best at it. But I do want to bring up some minor issues that a lot of people don't know or bring up with Brave. First of all, it is based on Chrome. They do have to edit it, so the more Google updates and they have to use the newer versions of Chrome that then they have to audit, the more likely Google can try to sneak insidious stuff into this platform. So that is something that is a potential issue. It hasn't cropped up yet, but that's something to be alert about. Another thing about it is that one of the things that Brave tried to sell itself as, and it's maybe not as useful for activists, but it's important to note in terms of business practices, is they advertise that they block all the ads, which they do. They block a lot of ads, but then they advertise that you can opt in to display ads that don't track you and have been pre-vetted and approved, which we don't normally see how that vetting works. Regardless of that, there's an annoyance issue where when you do enable those ads both on your phone and your desktop are pop-up ads. So while they're technically right in that they remove ads, the caveat is they kind of didn't realize why people don't like ads where you're trying to like get to privacytools.io and you can't click on anything because there's so many pop-ups going on with your computer blinging all the time. You would if you are sick and tired of that type of stuff, and also you're not fully trusting with the type of ads they display, you can opt out of that. Part of the ad system, which is the final piece, is they have their own cryptocurrency token that is called BAT, or the Brave Attention Token. There is an issue with that, I must point out, which is that this ledger, much like Bitcoin, and we'll get into that in a moment, is not private. And either anyone can either open up the ledger, or it's not very difficult, and I've seen people do it, to look up BAT token ledgers. BAT tokens only accepted by a certain pool of websites. So already right there, people will know if you're not paying, that means you're on a non-BAT website. They have to do further investigation. If you are paying, there's a limited amount of websites that you could possibly be on, and depending on the payment amount and other factors, they might be able to deduce what sort of website you're on. And websites, for example, like The Guardian or The Washington Post and the EFF and stuff take those. So once again, it's not the biggest possible security thing, but this is another piece of recon that you're unintentionally putting out there. I wanted to explain that, and there's only two really more to go, that about Brave, because there's something really important. It's one of the reasons why I actually made this talk in the first place a while ago, is there's a lot of snake oil out there in terms of security and privacy. Essentially, since Facebook got busted online, everyone now advertises privacy. Facebook says they protect your data. Facebook says they protect your data. Twitter says, Microsoft says they're the harbingers, and Apple of like your data insecurity. We all know that's not. We've seen the articles, we've seen the lawsuits. This is a thing. So we should just say, oh, just look up some privacy related stuff and download those. But now, like what I'm doing in my talk, we have to be specific, because everyone out there advertises that they're privacy and security. So if every sneech has a star, how do we know which is what and which is actually privacy related or not? And one of the biggest ones is the Dissenter Browser. Now, here's what I'm going to do in this talk. Let's put all politics aside with this. I know we've been really political right now, but just in terms of this case argument, let's put all policy aside. This is made by the Gab organization. There is design stuff that they've done that's really problematic. So first of all, this Dissenter Browser is completely based on Brave. If you look at the code, it is a fork of Brave since the Brave code is open source. Like 80% of it is Brave. So all the potential problems that I previously listed with Brave, Dissenter also inherits by default. Dissenter itself is a little extension that you can get on most browsers, but it's built in by default in Dissenter Browser. And what it's supposed to do is they advertise it's this freedom of speech thing where you can go on any website, and even if they turn the comment section off, they can go on there and make a comment. If you know anything about servers, this might sound kind of tricky. In order to know where the comments are, not only does it store your comments centrally at Gab, at wherever, who have been subpoenaed by law enforcement in the past, I might add. Dissenter needs to know what URL you're going to in order to load the comments. So at Gab, if you're using Dissenter, Gab has a list of and log of every single URL that you visited, plus every comment you made on that URL. And because they usually comply with law enforcement, if they get subpoenaed, all that information goes away. Or let's say they get hacked, or let's say high criminal activity goes in. Yes, the Zuck especially. So this is a bad idea. If you look up Gab and their claims about privacy, they're very dubious. I'm going to sum them up really quick. Gab is basically Twitter, except they claim they're not Twitter. That's the summary of all of their privacy stuff. They've done the same scrupulous stuff, again, removing all politics. They've done the same scrupulous, banning and unbanning and double speak that Twitter does, except they snake oil themselves by advertising that they're not Twitter, even though they behave very much like Twitter. They're also late to the open source games. This Dissenter and Dissenter Browser is their first open source thing. Gab wasn't. And originally, the concept of Dissenter was supposed to be a closed source thing with Google. They were going to proprietary a bunch of stuff, but they decided to go to open source, not because they believe in it. And of course, if they believed in privacy, they would have been in open source in the first place, but they also, again, these are enterprise people in terms of who runs Gab. They basically were getting their butt kicked legally online, so their way of sneaking out of it is through open source. So their heart's not in the right place with why they're using open source. And lastly, good news, Dissenter Browser does not use the BAT token. It uses something worse. Eventually, they're going to patch in a Bitcoin wallet that will be in the browser that is based off the Lightning Network. And if you've known anything or researched Bitcoin, you can look up any Bitcoin ledger, and people break into Bitcoin wallets and break in stuff all the time. So not only can they index you like the way BAT token works, but you can dig even further information because Bitcoin is such a huge attack surface that it's just been doing all this stuff. Yeah, someone wrote, Gab is Twitter for all the horribleness you'll get banned from social media for. Not necessarily. People have been banned from there. I'm going to recommend this later, but I will repeat again. Joining a Mastodon instance is probably one of the best ways in order to vocalize your opinion on stuff. If you don't like that instance, you could do another instance. You could spin up your own instance. And it was originally open source, done by good open source people. This is what we mean about open source and privacy stuff, not this sort of, we're corporate people and we're going to advertise that we are safe and secure, even though we're just going to turn into another Twitter. That's not what we want. Again, moving all politics out of this. Quick honorable mentions, real quick here. Do not use Opera overall. They had good ideas on paper, like there's a built-in VPN and stuff, but they're owned by a group called Gold Brick Capital Private Equity Fund, aka is a company that's like Tencent that's in China. The VPN is also built from them. Their VPN, where they do the logs for the DPI, and you're also subjected to deep packet inspection. All those logs is stored within Norway, which is a 9 eyes country. It's still outside of the 5 eyes, but intelligence data in Norway will still subpoena and hand over intelligence of what you were doing on that VPN to other countries like the United States and the UK. So that's kind of an issue right there. Please do not use Yandex, Baidu, or Tencent. These are Chinese and Russian companies. They are kind of similar to a certain degree American companies beholden to the country that they're for. So if Russia needs Yandex's information, Russia's going to get Yandex's information. What are some others? Microsoft Edge was already terrible, and now they've changed it to Google Chrome, so everything I'm going to quickly talk about with Google Chrome is kind of an issue right there. Komodo Dragon, as much as Komodo tries to do good things for security, once again, it is based on Chromium, and it's also, they closed source parts of the Google Chrome browser that they modify, and it's running through their own DNS, and because they're located in New Jersey, they're not only subjected to U.S. subpoena laws for your data, but also New Jersey's laws, which New Jersey has extra laws about that, so please don't use that. And finally, we have Google Chrome itself. Google really should have like enough said, but Google has direct links with the CIA. They work for most government high-end institutions, CIA, FBI, and stuff. These are not conspiracy theories. Go on Wikipedia, look it up. They're all there. Even though Chromium is supposed to be more open source, there's a lot of tracking that is built into both Chromium and Chrome. There is stuff there that is so embedded in that if you take any of it out, it will destroy the browser, and the browser doesn't work, which is why I try to tell people to avoid using anything based on Chromium in the first place. I will mention, though, if you are stuck on something and you need to, for some reason, use Chrome, there is a hacker that has made a thing on GitHub called On Google Chromium. We'll post the link later in chat, where he's every time Google updates. See, Google's the Microsoft of today. I almost said Microsoft as a Freudian slip. He's gone in every time Microsoft updates and has stripped all the tracking stuff out of Chrome. You won't get any extensions to work, although there's ways around that, which I'm not going to show on today's thing, but I will eventually do some sort of video on that. And it's just a really good use if you have to use the Blink rendering engine in Chromium. There's also the Iridium browser. Vivaldi has a really good track record. They were the people who originally ran Opera, and even though they're based off of Chromium, they've also stripped out all the stuff, and you can still load in extensions. Those are kind of like my recommendations if you're forced to use Chrome. Getting back to Firefox here, what you're going to use is base Firefox, so I'm going to quickly go through, and this is probably the fastest part of all the stuff you need to do in order to secure your stuff, and I'm just going to check chat real quick. Nexus says, yeah, I do that a lot. Jack can tell you the story later where he's working on a project that actually uses Firefox, and he knew I do a lot of in-depth browser stuff, so he tried to harden Firefox as best he could, and he did a commendable job, dead serious, to me. And then I basically put it into a bunch of meat grinders, some that I'll list here. And if I remember correctly, I think you're still currently redoing Firefox because there is just so many vectors people can sort of attack you for. Someone wrote, I'd rather the Russians have my information than the Americans. I don't know. That kind of sounds like a plant right there.
That's one of those.
I would say this probably if you're in America giving data, you're probably already giving data to the Russians if you're giving it to America.
So here's the problem: is you don't want to give it to anybody because one thing that
I know you were joking.
No, but
we just had to put that point out there because it's 2016. Sarcasm's dead.
Sarcasm
you literally
died.
even escaped from New York right now.
Yeah, sarcasm's dead. So you might be sarcasm, but you don't want to give too much personal data to the Russians or the Chinese. Because if they have it, believe it or not, they can give it selectively back to the Americans. And I'll tell you why. Because if they're collecting data on you, the only reason why they're going to care in the first place is because it does something. They're collecting what you ate for dinner. They don't care. They're collecting data on American citizens for a reason. And if you're not in the government,
They also have a lot of
you
links
can
to
get to the
criminal
government.
elements that they directly work
So
with.
if so now a foreign government might have blackmail on you, and that's a big one. Why would they want blackmail on you? Because you're a U.S. citizen, and maybe they can con you into doing something for them. Like they can go to the U.S. government and says we have dirt on you, and they'll say it'll be our little secret, but they might want you to do something in the U.S. for them. So there's never they can't hurt me because they're across the seas. No, they could, or if things really go to hell and kind of. One of what people don't realize is when they see these big disturbances going on, you think there's two sides. No, there's the two major sides, and then because there's law and disorder in that power vacuum, you'll start to see other shit pop up, and I almost guarantee you'll start seeing Russian and Chinese agents.
Not to cut you off, Jack, because I hate to do that because you're really on a good roll. I just want to get through this, and then we can chat about this type of stuff afterwards. So just hold that thought, because this will honestly probably be the fast part. So what I've done here, and I'm going to share to a different thing here, is I opened a new Firefox profile. Firefox profiles is one of the ways that is very advantageous to securing your privacy. Basically, if you go to the URL, and normally where you type www or HTTP or whatever, and type in pornhub.com/boobies, you go in and there's about and colon, and you can go into a lot of different system functions directly in Firefox. So when I say load up a new profile, there is performance. That's the default for that, but there's profiles. And this will bring you to this page, and as you can see, there's a default here that we're currently not using. And what you can do is you can go up here and do create a new profile, and when you walk through the steps of that, you get to name it. You can load up multiple instances of profiles. So for example, if you want like a plain Firefox, so if your boss comes by or whatever, you could be like, yeah, I'm just on Google looking up the memes. But then load a different one that has all of your privacy elements, or you want to test out a privacy thing, the profile section is where we're going to go. And we're going to get back to that in a moment. But the first thing you're going to want to do is modify something called about config. So if you remember earlier, and I'm going to go back a couple of pages while I speak, we talked about a website called privacytools.io. They're a really great resource. They also have an Onion version. We're going to go into web browsers, and we're going to scroll down to the first ever tutorial you're going to see about this, which is about WebRTC. So to jump ahead, there's a protocol out there called WebRTC. It's used in a lot of communication stuff. I'm not sure for this, but for example, like Zoom. A lot of times if you're like putting video out there or vice versa, that's going to be using WebRTC. Normally for applications, that's fine. The problem that they found out with WebRTC is that even if you're using a VPN, your data is going to leak thanks to the built-in WebRTC. The issue with this is that most people use Google Chrome as their browser. And remember I said that Google hard codes tracking and security stuff? There is no real way to turn off WebRTC. So if you use Chrome and you use VPN, your IP is basically almost guaranteed to leak. The closest way you can watchdog that is we're going to install an extension later that is called uBlock, and Chameleon, where in the settings you can turn off WebRTC. but it's not a guarantee. That's a Band-Aid for Google Chrome. This is why in Firefox, there is a direct Firefox method to turn this off, and we're actually going to walk this through right now. So we're going to go into the, we're going to go back to here. We're going to go into another about, which is about config. So when you go in here, it's going to warn proceed with caution, because what you've done is now you've entered in, you basically are now coding an assembly in terms of a browser. This is the control list for every single type of detail you can possibly do within Firefox. So we're going to accept the risk and continue. And because this is a new instance, it's not going to show here, but there's normally a huge list of options you're able to change, even though the options are here by search. So to remove WebRTC, there is a function that's called Media Peer Connection Enabled, which is how WebRTC will connect to Firefox to try to use things like webcamming. So we go back to Advanced Preferences, we copied and paste that in there, and hit enter, and that brings it up. Right now it says true. That means it's on. You want to turn it off. Do you do that by double clicking it? And now it's false. It is turned off now. You can leave that off. And there are many, many options on here, not only as you can see here with variants of WebRTC, but if we scroll down past some more stuff that we're going to get to in a second, there's a whole laundry list of different stuff like first-party isolation, fingerprinting, crypto mining, all sorts of things. And DRM. I highly recommend to go through Firefox in privacystools.io and just copy and paste each one of these and set them to the value, like cookie behavior, accept it to 2, which blocks all, or 1 for only accept originating site, or if you want more security, just change the number to 2. Go through every single one of these. There is an extension that makes it easier to do, that even after you do this, I recommend installing. But I highly recommend going to privacystools.io, do the WebRTC part, then jump down to the about config tweaks and do every single tweak in here to completely lock down Firefox. We got that? We good? I'm going to take a look for any questions or comment. Someone wrote a Tor router script that needs some tweaks. We will share that. You can probably actually see that in chat, but I will copy down that link, and we will look that up and share that with the world. Thank you for that, who decided to share that. So since there's no, so it says a joke, I'll stick with Internet Explorer, it's safe. Probably to most government facilities, for them it's safe. I do know that, funny enough, the government uses a modified version of Firefox to log into stuff like the network, the military networks, the .mils that like the Air Force and stuff uses. There's actually something you can download where you can take a look at that, even though you can't log them. Again, Firefox is so malleable that even the United States government uses it for their own privacy stuff, for their own service agents.
Well, hey,
so just keep a note of that with what I'm talking about Firefox.
It beats the Son of West with CDU, which is how they processed me years ago.
Screen here real quick, and then we're going to continue on, and like 2 or 3 minutes we should be done. After you do all the configs, your next thing you're going to do here is you're going to install extensions. Now, there is a lot of extensions, but what I'm going to focus here is just what I feel like are probably the most essential things you can do for fortifying with extensions. And fortunately, let me find the window here. Here we go. Now we're going to share it. Fortunately, again, privacystools.io pretty much lists almost all of them. So the first one that you would want to add in is called uBlock Origin. It's a wide spectrum blocker. We're actually going to go there and add it right now as an example. So with those icons, you can click on what distro you have in this, browser you have in this case. It's Firefox. You click Add to Firefox. It's going to say, do you want permission to it? We're going to give it permission for all of these things because it's already been vetted by privacystools.io. And now it's added in the upper right corner here. And for future proofing, because we're going to go back to this in a moment, you should click Allow to be used in private tabs, because we will go over that in a second. I just want to go through the essential extensions first. So that was uBlock Origin. I'm not going to install them all here right now, but let's go over a bunch of others that I agree with Privacy Tools are pretty essential in my opinion. So there are 2 tools from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, or the EFF. You can find them at the EFF.org. We are part of the Electronic Frontier Alliance. That's a subsection of the EFF, where we're activists that try to promote privacy like this. So 2 tools that they have made here is the HTTPS Everywhere Secure Connection, which will force your browser, actually I'll install it right now while I'm talking about it, because this is actually really cool that a lot of people don't know about. It forces Firefox to look up HTTPS certificates so that you are using HTTPS. There's a common security thing where still a lot of websites, even if they have HTTPS enabled, they don't put it on by default. It doesn't automatically change you over to HTTPS. So, and I used to have an example on here to show what that void is like, but this will make sure it forces it to that. And if it doesn't, and you can put on super extensions here by putting on encrypt all sites illegible off, which if you went to one that wasn't verified, I can't really think of one right now. I'm going to try to, unfortunately, let me test this guy first. I just want to see, because it should load in normal, but yeah, okay, so it didn't load in normal. That's good, that's good. It's always good to double check this sort of stuff. But if we were on a wrong one, there would be a warning screen in the window that says, warning, this doesn't have HTTPS, do you still want to continue? So when it's red, it's super locked like that. For most people, I'd say leave it blue, but if you're in a hostile thing where you don't trust the web traffic that you're on, definitely make it red by turning on that option. The other tool that I highly recommend here, scroll down, is, where is it listed here? They moved some things around since I've last visited. So apparently I can't find it right now, but we can actually go to the page that it is on. If we go to the EFF.org. The other tool that they have is called Privacy Badger. And Privacy Badger is really awesome because what it does is it enables do not track by default, which you can also enable by yourself in Firefox. We'll get to that in a bit. And the other thing about it is that it will, as you surf, it will not only figure out and point to what trackers that you have, it will also list the most, we have no trackers right now, but it lists the most common trackers it finds, and you can set security settings. So it kind of lets you know exactly, like Google Analytics, who's browsing you. Another cool one that is a complement to Privacy Badger is Decentralize, which what it will do is it will, once you put it in, it will block, it will not only block content delivery services, but it particularly looks out for scripting injections. So if you're on there and someone tries to do a scripting injection in order to track you, whether it's for advertisements or whatever, this will catch it, point it out, and let you know of its existence. Finally, two more that are very important here. One is, it was right here somewhere, hang on. Is yes, terms of service did not read. I'm not going to install it, but what it does is it sometimes it brings up an icon, sometimes it doesn't, but it sits in the background. And what it will do, actually, screw it. We have a little bit of time. I am going to install this one. Trust me, I'm not going to install all of these. I just want to kind of just show some of these in action as a proof of concept. So let's say, for example, I don't know, you're an activist. You've never had a Twitter before. You want to sign up for a Twitter. You've heard your friends are on Twitter, you've seen Twitter, but you've never used it. So let's try to do it on Twitter. And if I load correctly, oh, you see that? There's that little D in the corner. Doesn't stand for dicks. And what it did, because you saw a pop-up, the terms of service here are very uneven or some important issues you need attention. And when you click on that, it's going to bring up all the terms of service that Twitter has, and we'll go through all and let you know of all the warning ones. So it's very, very broad license concept. Uses third-party cookies. This is a red one's bad. The service can delete specific content without prior notice and without reason. Basically, this allows you to go on to public services that you might use, and if they have a terms of service and they inflate it really long so you're bored and you just scroll down and click on it, term service do not read will guarantee to let you know if there's something problematic, and then you can go in and find out what the problematic stuff is. Again, this is your type of threat modeling. So I honestly consider that very essential. And then the last thing, which is more advanced, but I still think it's necessary, and honestly, it's also easier to disable, is, scroll down here, is, should be, God, they moved it again. Yeah, they moved it again. But what it is, and it's one of Jack's favorite thing, is no script. And yeah, we haven't changed the search engine yet. We're going to get to that in a second. No script is an extension that you can use for Firefox. And what it does is it will load up a little thing in the corner, and it will let you know what pages are using JavaScript. You can turn individual sites, their JavaScript on and off, Or again, if you're in a hostile environment like you are right now, you can turn JavaScript off for everything. It will break a lot of websites, but that lets you know, one, how much JavaScript they use, and JavaScript is sort of the backbone for how a lot of these tracking and fingerprinting systems work. So if you've killed scripting for a website, you have done most of the work in order to kill that sort of tracking that's going on. So what other things now that we have are basics, and I do recommend this eTag and cookie auto delete. eTag will stop eTag responses, and cookie auto delete will, if you're in a hostile environment and you load that, it will basically manage your cookies. If you leave a tab alone for too long, it will delete the cookies for that. And when you turn off your browser, it will just delete all the cookies that you have. Again, cookies, because you probably knows the banners on the bottom of a lot of websites that say, hey, we accept cookies. We want to let you know that. They probably give you a lot more cookies, and there's websites that don't show that banner that definitely feed you cookies. And those cookies are another way that definitely track you. I just want to read the chat in a second. Yeah. Rename your shell script sh or bash. Okay. But what are some other things we can do here? So the last things I kind of want to go over, and I'm going to move this camera part over, is we're going to go into the options here, which will bring up the about preferences, which you can also type in and make manually. And there's two things we want to look at mainly here. First of all, never ever sync or set up a Firefox profile. You're putting all of your traffic through Firefox when you do that. They are easy to subpoena at Mozilla, and they probably will handle all of your data. So just don't make a Firefox account sync. You might not be able to use some other security Firefox has, but a lot of those you can use extensions for that are open source and are yours to personally use, so you'll live. The two tabs we're going to mainly focus on here is the search function and privacy function. There's a huge thing that goes on where it asks you about the different bars. I personally turn on this, which is to add the search bar in the toolbar, because that allows you to use multiple different search engines. A thing that, and Firefox does this, but almost all browsers do this, is they set your default search engine to go. They also have a lot of bad other search functions like Bing and Amazon. If you don't want to do too much configuration, select DuckDuckGo. They're simply at duckduckgo.com. And another cool thing about it is, let's say you're on an old computer or your network's getting throttled. If you go to duckduckgo.com/LITE for light, it will load up a very super simple one that has no images or other data, so you can directly search and bring up all the stuff without all the bloat. So if your network's getting throttled and you're in bad conditions, you can still search for DuckDuckGo. A note about DuckDuckGo, this is not their issue, but they are an American company, meaning they're located in Five Eyes. So if they're raided by the FBI or they're subpoenaed, is very much likely the United States government will get the data on that. Two other search engines I recommend, which is here's in one step up, is Start Pages. I believe it's startpages.com. I don't know if I entered into the right thing there. Unfortunately, it says Start Pages. DuckDuckGo, find Start Pages for us. Okay, there we go. HTTPS, it's all weird. They're located in France, and while that is a European country that does share Intel, they have a lot more Libre laws there, and it works very similar to DuckDuckGo. My only annoyance, and I'm going to see if this happens here, is a lot of times when you search, okay, not on desktop, but in your phone, if you Start Pages, a lot of times it will open up new tabs. If you want to be like super into security when browsing, remember that onion I showed earlier? Here's the ClearNet version of that, search.info. And what that does again is it's decentralized. This is one of the many hosts. Let's bring up the about page so we can look at the instances here. Let's find this. Stats. Hang on one moment. The link is here somewhere. This is how you can tell we're doing this live. Let's see. The anonymous statistics. How do I make my own? Search public instances. So as you can see here from this list, there are many, many instances of this search engine. And it works just like DuckDuckGo, except a little bit more advanced, where it requests from multiple websites, and then when the data comes back, it just takes the data and blocks all their blockers. And there's so many different ones, so you can find which network you feel is trusted. They also have Tor instances up on there, and they also show you which ones are defunct. So if, let's say search default.it goes down. Well, search lueffects.house. Well, that one's currently odd, but let's try no media. That one, different logo, they customize, but it's still search. That will still be up. It's decentralized. It's nearly impossible to take this offline. And so I think for that alone, you want something reliable and that's really going to block. Use search. If you can't remember all that and you want something basic, I highly recommend Start Pages and DuckDuckGo. So now that we got that out of the way, let's go back to here. I hate the tab thing. So we're going to turn off all the search suggestions. Here's the one-click search engines. Even though we set our default to DuckDuckGo, it still will do, if it can't find queries, it will bring up other queries. We're going to turn off other queries so it isolates to DuckDuckGo. And personally, myself, I leave Wikipedia open because that's another open source Red repository. So right now, when it does search queries, it's only going to do DuckDuckGo and Wikipedia. You can also, again, like with search, you can add more search engines rather as an extension or to type them in directly. So now that we've dealt with this tab, let's go to the privacy security section, which is the meat of the bones. You have the enhanced tracker protection here. I personally, you can customize this. I'm going to set it to strict. That's going to stop social media trackers, cookies, tracking content on Windows, crypto miners, and fingerprints right off the bat. You've already now done more than enough to fortify your Firefox right there. Someone asked in chat, is there any easy way to set up a proxy? I'm going to take a breathing break in a moment. Jack, do you want to answer that question? Question is there any easy way to set up a proxy? Yes, that's an extension that you can get and configure. You can explain that, Jack, so go on. Yeah, you can, I'll stop share and then we'll go back to this. And then I'll literally be done in like 5 to 8 minutes. Then we'll talk about whatever, and we might play some videos. And otherwise, this was a pretty good stream. I'm glad we did this. Thank you all for being here. Jack, go right ahead. Yes, I was going to get to that with Chameleon, but you can detail this here. Jack, I don't think there's audio coming through because I can't hear you on my end.
So there we go.
And I'm listening directly through Twitch.
Okay, so what's it called? The audio is here now. Okay.
Okay, now we go.
So this is a user agent switcher.
So this is about proxies and user agents. Go.
So this one I have manually entered the Tor browser. It's not kind of as slick as the previous one, but this one that doesn't work. The guy who designed it decided he wasn't going to maintain it no more. Firefox 52 came around and he's like, yeah, well, I'm not updating for a new one. So you have this one. It works almost well enough. It doesn't. There's nobody maintaining a huge list of agents like the previous one. But reality is privacy. Just set the Tor browser. Just like go here, get the Tor browser.
I was going to do that, but yeah, ultimately you can use the Tor browser, which is based off of Firefox.
Which is based off of Firefox anyway. Because the thing is, though, it's like you don't want to, because if you'll get fingerprinted if you use one that's not.
I just want to let people know how malleable Firefox is as a browser. That's why a lot of legit security stuff use it and modify it to make their security.
So this is Foxy Proxy, right? So this is cool. This is like a drop-down menu here. You can go to Options here. You can add. You can set up a proxy. Within these proxies, you can put certain preset patterns here. So I was doing some screwing around, so I just have like this random proxy that I just set up just for shits and giggles.
Oh crap, Jack! They can't see the screen. You might have to start from the top.
Oh yeah. Fuck. 1 second.
Yeah, because I even see it here. It just says the sign in for the Zoom. It says all we see is his logins. He is doxing. Give us a moment. Jack will configure on his end, and we'll probably change the passwords later, although we have a really good password for that. We can get into passwords at the end when we talk about browser stuff. But yeah. So again, if there's any questions within chat or whatever of anything I've talked about so far, or any questions about privacy and security in general, especially if you're out there right now, let us know. Okay, you're good?
This fucking vegetable eating communists. Okay.
Here we go.
Sarcasm. Okay, so anyway, this is Foxy Proxy. Or anyway, here's our stream. This is the user agent switcher I was talking about earlier with with no audio. If you go here on add-ons, you can see I have a few different ones here. Preferences, there's a whole thing here. You have to like manually add these. So if you use anything other than like Tor browser, you'll get fingerprinted as having a weird or unique browser. You can use this for dev work if you want to test like web page response for different like mobile or Chrome or whatever. Because if you think they're giving you like a give version for Firefox, you can check it with like pretend your IE or whatever. So we'll keep it as like Tor browser is just generally what go to the Cape. This one here is Foxy Proxy. Basically here is where you can just basically like add a proxy. A few different a few different options here. You can
Jack, can you quickly detail what a proxy is for those who might not know at home?
Okay, so in case you're wondering, before there was Tor, when you went to control web forms, let's see, back in the ancient year of 2001 or maybe 1999, you get this thing called a web proxy. And all it does is it just forwards traffic. It's like kind of like Tor, but it's one node. It's just specifically one standalone
VPNs are basically
node.
kind of like that, yeah.
And then what people used to do is they used to share big lists of web proxies, like HTTP proxies, and there's like anonymous proxies. And you go through lists, and every time you got banned from a website that you were trolling to get back on, you go put like another proxy. They had some legit uses, especially in enterprise. Like you want to filter all the company wants to filter all of its traffic through like one.
Except now we're going to use this for good.
So the way this works, right? We're not actually really. So here I have like some random proxy. I was literally screwing around like I was literally partying like it was 1999, and I have like this one web proxy. I think I don't remember what I was doing with this one, but I was doing something. I don't need it. So a few things you can do with web proxies, and a few things actually use the proxy API, which actually aren't web proxies, is Tor. So the way Tor is accessible to user space programs is how you route over Tor is you configure it as a proxy. So proxy, not a remote proxy, but a proxy running on localhost. So for at least for this one, Tor is by itself is a SOCKS 5 proxy, exposes itself as a SOCKS 5 proxy. But no, this one's not moving directly through Tor. This is moving through another program called Privoxy, and Privoxy goes through Tor. The cool thing about Privoxy is it does some filtering, and it also translates. So now you're running an HTTP proxy instead of SOCKS. This is not necessarily matter so much for this one, but some programs need an HTTP proxy and won't work with SOCKS, so you can now filter them from them. I'm going to get that in a second if we have time. The other good thing about this is one set up for Tor and I2P. So in the Privoxy configuration, I have what's it called, specifically all the .onions going through Tor, all the specifically .I2P going through I2P. So so here, when it says enable proxies by pattern and order, you'll see these patterns right here. .onion goes to an onion goes to onion, special ports and onions, and I2P goes to I2P. Anything with these will just go through here, and then Privoxy will automatically route it to where it is. So if you're browsing ClearNet and all of a sudden you see an onion link and you click it, this will just open the onion or I2P link seamlessly. That's what this setup does. And it blacklists all like localhost. So anything like on your local area network and your local host will never use a proxy. One of the other proxies I have, if you do pen testing, is you have your attack proxy, which again is on localhost. It's just HTTP 80 and 80. So if you're running something like Burp or ZA proxy, you could what's it called? There's no patterns here at all. So this one will never be used unless you go specifically here.
And to note, localhost is basically it looks internally for your landing page.
Yes.
It's not an external network.
Otherwise known as a loopback device. So if you're doing pen testing with Burp or with ZA proxy, instead of having to futz with the settings, you could just go here and switch it to your attack proxy. When you're done, you can switch it back here. Foxy Proxy is a really great tool. It's very flexible. You could.
Also really useful to get into something that's called ZeroNet when you talk about home stuff.
Yes.
I also wanted to interrupt and just to let people know that one of the biggest advantages of Foxy Proxy is that you can do these configurations within Firefox, but what Foxy Proxy allows you to do is, since it's a little extension in the upper right corner, once you've configured the different, you can not only put multiple different proxies in Foxy Proxy, but you can literally click and select them and change on the fly, as opposed to constantly going into Firefox profiles and manually changing it, and you can only have one profile.
I was actually about to get to that. Because I was going to say here, if you want to run everything through Tor now, you can select Tor and I2P, and this will route everything through either Tor or I2P, which means it's all kind of default to the.
You would still have to do other
Tor.
fortification process, but you're now in the Tor network, which is good.
Yes, there's a lot of other fortifications in this browser not being shown. It's a lot of the same stuff Stypacket has. So check.torproject.org, and you'll see this is configured to use the Tor network correctly.
Yep.
So, and when you're done with it, so if you're going to do this correctly, a lot of times you go here, you'd have private window, and then you select this on. But now you can select this off. So even here, if you're clicking, so it's, if somebody puts an onion link, this will open the onion link correctly. What's it called? While I'm here, another program that I have been working on, systemctl start onion, that I've been fooling around with here, combination of two things.
Okay, and then after this, we need to go back and finish this.
Where is it here? Is somebody wrote this script. They took it off, and it took me a long time to find this. But somebody wrote an enumeration script of list all onions in onion space. And whoever wrote this thought this was stupid. He was trying to parody the fact that like people will put lists of onions, and he said that was stupid. And I was like, wow, no, that's not true. This is brilliant, because you might not like this. But what you've basically literally done is you've run an enumeration against all of onion space. So once you have an enumeration against onion space, this is not literally like links of here. This is actually like a Python script that will generate these on the fly, so it doesn't really take up any hard disk space. So once you have enumerated all these with hyperlinks, now, once you've done that, now it's searchable actually, but crawlable. You can actually point. So, while we're on the topic of search engines, we have a. It might take a minute to load. Honestly, unlike search, which is somewhat lightweight, this is one big, heavy, clunky mess of Java. And to be fair, I've never seen a Java program which was anything other than a big, clunky mess of Java, like I2P. So now you have Yacy.
Yeah, it's a more advanced search engine. You have to basically run it yourself. Imagine search, but you're only the only one who can deploy and access it.
Yes. It's not quite, because in the default configuration, it has what they call free world, which is kind of a peer-to-peer, its own little network of connected search engines which you can search through if that's the way you're really supposed to use it. If you do use case like us, as opposed to a community-based.
Remember earlier about them talking, our friends at Thugcrowd talking about self-hosting. This is an example of the type of self-hosting.
So the one cool thing you can do this is if you want a site-specific index, like you want to index your site and you want to put like a search banner on your site, you can do this. And if like for here or here, you can do internet indexing, which is basically works with Tor. So you can, what we have Privoxy set up earlier, you could set this up to go through Privoxy. And now, all of a sudden, it works with onion space. And as you can see earlier, what I've been doing is I've been using this, and I've literally told it to crawl this. So procedurally plowing through every single onion in existence, just looking for content. As you can see from the diagram, they are enumerating. As you can see from the low numbers, it's slow, but it's running. It's one of those also you probably want a lot of system resources to do this. Ideally, not in addition to system resources, you probably want a server running 24/7 to do all this. And back to Stypacket.
So
One second.
That's kind of that. We can go back to this in a bit. I just want to finish my thing because I'm glad this is going on. What happened? This is a question I want to answer, and then want to go back to that.
And we're back. Go ahead. The floor is yours, Mr.
Are you sure? I don't see. Oh, I don't see anything right now. Okay, there we go.
All right.
All right. So again, thank you for that, Jack. I will mention though that is the more the maybe not necessarily Foxy proxy, I guess to some degree, but that's the more advanced stuff. But they're very useful tools to you, and I'm glad you answered that question. Also, the person who asked about John Doe, I'm going to answer that at the end. I just want to get through the rest of this because again, when it comes to learning something in hacking, you need to learn how to crawl before you know how to walk, and walk before you know how to run. So covering the basics so we can talk about this really complicated stuff is really good to do. So last that we went through here, we already configured, we already did the about section. We, to some degree, we added some basic core extensions. And now we modified our search so it's to DuckDuckGo. And now we're in the privacy and security settings. So we set our settings to strict, which will automatically block so much stuff that you're already over halfway to fortifying. There's the do not track, which will send the signal to websites that will actually ask if you want to have these APIs in there that might be trackers, and if you list no, the website will listen and actually not use them, so you want to turn that on to always. For cookies, if you install cookie auto delete, you not have to really deal with that very much, but you can go into here and you can clear data manually. You can also go in here and click this, which is delete cookies on site data when Firefox is closed. You can manage permissions in it, so you can add exceptions for websites for cookie data if you need it. And I believe, yeah, and that's it. If you need it to like cycle, so like after you use X amount of time cookies delete, that's what the cookie auto deleter is there for. After you're done with cookies, you have logs in and passwords. We're going to talk about password managers briefly in a moment, so I'm going to turn just logins and passwords all off. We're going to do passwords in manually. For history, depending on your preference, but if we want to do like max privacy here, we'll use never remember history. You can also use custom ones. We're not going to restart it now, but in order to use that function, we'd have to restart Firefox. For the address bar, we're going to turn off all the suggestions. In the permissions, you'd want to go in and for locations, camera, microphone, unless you think you're going to use them, and if you are, you can turn them on. To go down and click the block new requests asking for your location, and you're going to do that, and you're going to go to that left corner and click block for every single one of these, from location, camera, microphone, notifications, autoplay, and virtual reality. That's going to save a bunch of stuff. We're going to keep to block pop-up windows, warn when websites try to install add-ons so that when you click on a tab, it doesn't like secretly try to load an add-on in the background. And we're also going to prevent accessibility service from accessing your browser. I'm not sure about that option. If you want to be super concerned, you can click that. I've never seen that as an issue, but that is an option at your disposal. Lastly, which is important, is that Firefox data collection. To be ultra secure and private here for Firefox, we're going to turn off sending technical information here. So all past data automatically that we've entered will be deleted in 30 days, and they'll just never collect data. And we're also going to turn off Firefox to install and run studies on your area. Very important, last but not least section here is we have, yes, in browser profiles, we're going to get that, yeah, we covered that going into the about profiles, is that, you see this thing that says block dangerous and deceptive content? We're actually going to turn that off, which is also going to turn off block dangerous downloads and warn you about unwanted and uncommon software. And you think, why would we want to do that? Don't we want to block dangerous and deceptive content like malware and ransomware and trackers and stuff? Well, one, that's what all the extensions are for. And the reason why you're going to use the extensions as a replacement for this is not necessarily that those extensions can do any better, but something, and it's the only, one of the few skeevy things that honestly Firefox does, but at least you have the option to disable it. When they talk about block and dangerous deceptive content, what they're doing is they're sending your data to Google's security section, and those AIs audit your data and then send it back. So this is a way when it's turned on for Google, even though we set our search engine to not Google and we're using a not Google browser, to still see your data. See, that's how insidious Google is. So if you truly, like we said in the past, do not want Google anywhere near your data in terms of just the browser, we're going to turn all these functions off. And then you can do what you want with certificates. To me, I just leave on to ask every time. and to query response for it. And for the most parts in these settings, you are good. If there was any you'd have to restart for, you'd restart for. And that covers a bunch of Firefox. Now, I will bring this thing up. What if you want to, we're going to the About Profiles. What if you, profile, can't spell. What if, just as a thought experiment, we wanted to see how far we can truly take Firefox. This will really uniquely fingerprint us, but let's say we're in the middle of a war zone like the Congo or Iran, or in this basically case, Washington, D.C. right now. And, you know, again, if you're out in D.C. or you're outside right now, whether you're protesting or not, please be safe. Please listen in. I'm going to go through apps at the end here of that you can use. Again, downloading from F-Droid in the Aurora store. That will help you when you're outside. And I also want to note that if you download Firefox, even though there are, to me, better options for your phone, you can do the same configurations and extensions in the mobile apps too. So this works, all default Firefox works like this. But let's create a new profile. Let's call it like Haxor Fort. And this will create a new profile. We're going to open up Haxor Fort. And I've developed, and we're going to try to go to the files here for this, because what we're going to do, and I don't know if you can see it on the... Oh, Jesus, we weren't screen sharing the entire time. I'm a moron. I am a moron. How did I not notice that? I am dumb. I'm going to do a quick overview for that. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. This is my error for tonight. I guess chat was laughing at me the entire time that I didn't even do that. Let's go here. I'm sorry. Let's go do a quick overview of what we just did. So let's come on, shrink. There we go. So again, when we went back to the privacy settings, we set everything to strict. We turned on Do Not Track. We modified our cookie data so that we we don't accept really any cookies, especially from third parties, and that they will delete when we close the browser, and auto cookie delete that we'll install, you'll see later. Also, it does a lot of management. We are not going to have it log to save passwords, and we're also going to turn off the breach now that I remember this, because you ideally should be using a password manager. We can show a bit of that in a moment. We're going to, this I forgot, we're going to turn off to never remember history, and this normally will reset your browser. You would do that at the end. So I just want to show that option. We're going to turn off all the notifications for the address bar, which reduces tracking and permissions. We're going to turn off all permissions for our camera, location, microphone. If we ever need those, we can easily go into the permission setting here in preferences and turn them back on again. I'm going to quickly check chat. Again, I apologize for not having the screen share. We're going to block pop-up windows. Warn you when the websites try to install add-ons. It's up to you if you want to do the accessibility thing. We're going to turn off Firefox collecting any data about us. Very important. We're going to actually turn off block all dangerous and deceptive content, which will auto turn off all these two options, because the way they block dangerous and deceptive content is by sending it to Google. And again, with the extensions I mentioned before, what Google would have done to try to help you with like malware and stuff, the extensions I list will help you with those sort of privacy concerns. And then for certificates, we're going to leave on ask every time, and to create the OCPS response server to confirm validity of certificates. So your overall basic in terms of Firefox, in my opinion, except for one extension that you're going to see in possibly in a bit, is hardened at this point. But what we're going to do is we're going to open up a profile here, and we're going to open up the root folder, and you won't be able to see this, but it basically opens up an actual folder in your operating system, whether you're using Windows, Mac, or Linux. And what I have stored on here is a profile that I'm going to go into right now. That is a preset thing that's actually based on Jack's Ninja OS Firefox, and then modified a lot, although I have to do newer modifications that will super fortify this. So I'm literally going to copy and paste this directly in from what I stored into here. That's also, by the way, let's say you're going to use a different computer, or you're boot up a different operating system, and you're on Firefox for the first time, and you don't want to go through and configure all this. If you open your root folder in the About Profiles, put a USB stick, copy and paste it over. It's up to you if you want to do encryption on that USB stick. Once you do that, you now have a copy of all the configurations and extensions you did for Firefox. So you can go to a new Firefox, go into the profiles, open the root folder for the profile that you want, and then load, copy and paste the one on the stick to there. When you reload the browser or you open it in a new browser, all the stuff that you had is there. So that's how you move Firefox, which is a very handy tool, to multiple different multiple Firefoxes on multiple different operating systems. So hold on a moment here. We're gonna let's see. We're gonna replace this. So now copied over, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open this in a new browser window, and we're gonna screen share that. They're just nesting Firefox windows at this point. Let's see. Please open. Give it a couple of moments. It's gonna open. I'm just gonna check the chat real quick. Seems like people are cheering us on. Trust me, I'm almost done with the browser thing. Oh boy, apparently I opened too much. Okay, we're not gonna see that part. I will mention one other extension, however.
Gone too far.
And that is, Jack pointed out that user agent. We're gonna go into add on Firefox. I misspelled that wrong, but I'm sure it's going to find it anyhow. And we're going to search for one of my favorite ones. Chameleon is amazing. Actually, we're going to show off two real quick. Chameleon is amazing. I always teeter back and forth if this should be a default thing that should be added. Chameleon is a user agent that does just so much. I'm just going to move this window to the side. So you go in here, and here's the user agent portion here. You can randomize profiles. You click on these. These are all the type of profiles you can use. You can select which ones you want. I personally just put a random profile desktop, and we use change periodically, and I'm going to do it, in this case, every 30 minutes. So every 30 minutes, the user agent's going to think we're on a different thing. I can actually prove that later in a bit. But there's also so many other advanced options you could do here. Like you could do not track from here, the e-tag from here. You can spoof your accepted language. Forward IP, although I don't recommend that. You can disable refer, which is something I possibly can show off way later on if we do this next time, where there's a thing called tab napping, where if you click on something that has a refer, it will open a new tab. A lot of times when you do that, your previous tab will load into a different window. That window might have malware or trackers on it, and now your computer's infected. And it's either going to get locked down and ransomware, or government agencies and criminals are going to track you. So you want to always disable the refer when you want to do that. And then you can also block various injections. You can spoof audio here, the window name, keyboard, fingerprint. If you select this, I think you can type in, I do 180 milliseconds, because that's the normal delay for a key press is 160. So it can't figure out, it's kind of to some degree what you're typing. Fonts, clients, you can enable first party isolation. Basically all the advanced stuff that you'd really want to lock down, you can do all right here. And it also has a whitelist for different things. So that's one. And the second thing is, remember how I said earlier that about going to the about config and changing that? Well, I still recommend doing that. But after you do that, you're going to go in and go into, let's see, should pop up here. Privacy settings. It has such a generic name. So we're going to install this real quick. And this is probably the last advanced setting you will ever need. And what this will do is, now you have a little shield up here. When you click on it, all of those main privacy settings that was on privacytools.io are here. And they also have an enhanced privacy default and a full privacy default. You can also disable the WebRTC from here. So those are two if you want to do power user stuff. To me, those are two extra extensions along with Foxy Proxy if you want to roll your own proxies in order to be more secure. So finally, after all of this, we're going to go back to the presentation part here. That was most of that section. Again, privacy resource tools. You have privacytools.io, disroot.org, Proton Mail for your mail stuff, and Disroot also does mail. RiseUp.net does a bunch of stuff. Mastodon's a good social media Twitter replacement. Private Bin if you want to share files with each other. Most of these that are listed are under privacytools.io. So if you go to privacy.tools.io and click settings or operating systems, all of that sort of stuff is here. Password managers, there's two really good ones that Jack, I guess, might talk about later. I'm actually going to leave that for him, which is there's a Bitwarden, which is kind of a cloud hosting one. The one that I personally like, and I think Jack likes, is called KeePass, specifically KeePass XC, because there's a lot of different variants called KeePass. KeePass SC is the open source one. Jack will probably talk about that later. Oh, there's another extension here. This is kind of a joke called Snowflake. You can actually see it up here in this current browser setup. So if you don't have WebRTC on, Snowflake will basically allow you to do a temporary Tor node in your browser, so that extends the Tor network in terms of hops. Now, again, we don't have WebRTC on. Why would we want this? Well, if you turn it on and you want to provide a node, that's good. But reversely, by having Snowflake on there, your special Snowflake, if you're browsing and you realize it's glowing purple and you click and it says enabled, that means that WebRTC is running. So whatever security you put on for WebRTC is currently not working. So Snowflake is also kind of a great dashboard light on your car to let you know if WebRTC is disabled or not. And the very last thing that I'm going to show, in which I'm going to stop screen sharing for, we're going to go back to where is the something? Oh, we're just going to stop the share because I don't need to show the end part. Is I want to quickly talk about applications really quick and like browser stuff for your phone. So again, all the stuff I showed for Firefox will also work there. Here are some other things you can use. There's a great browser that's called Bromite, and it's featured right here. It looks a lot like if you were to download Google Chrome through the App Store, because that's basically what it is. There's a operating system where if you want to be really secure, by the way, like super advanced, hardware is king. No matter what software configurations you do, if they have access to your hardware, they can almost change anything. This is why it's very important to get a piece of hardware that you know that you own, that has good controls that you can control, as well as, for example, an operating system, for example, on here, variant of Linux. And there's many different types that you can use, whether it's Tails if you want a live instant deployable, Cubes if you really want to lock down and are afraid of getting tunneled, and honestly, almost any form of Linux. You're already making a huge progress. For phones, because there's a lot of basic Android stuff where they can track, there is a variant called Graphene OS, which is basically kind of they replaced a lot of stuff in Android and they strip a lot of Android out, and it completely works. You can load in APK apps like the way Google does and stuff. Some of them won't work because they rely on Google services, but a lot of them do. Most of the stuff on F-Droid, for example, will, and you still have the Aurora store. So because you've changed it from since you flashed your phone and changed it from Android to Graphene, you are now way more secure, because even though police could technically try to go through your hardware, they will not be. It's going to be really difficult for them to go through the operating system. And from that operating system, they made something called Bromite, where they took Google Chrome and, like ungoogled Chrome, stripped all the stuff out of it, and instead of just letting it be sandboxed to Graphene, they've put it on F-Droid and the Google Play Store. So if you're on your phone, I highly recommend getting Bromite as a, let me bring up the, my little thing here. I highly recommend, here we go, Bromite, that's that green icon, as your app right there. Again, in terms of installs, you still keep the Play Store just for legacy purposes, but you have Aurora and F-Droid. And if we load up F-Droid just kind of looks like this. So you can scroll through, and we're talking about Nextcloud. We clicked on that, and there you can just download Nextcloud to your phone. You can also download the Tor browser, that Onion. You can find it, I believe, on both F-Droid and the Google Play Store. And it says connect here, and you're going to connect. And once it connects, you can browse normally, and all the stuff we talked about doing with Tor, you can do with that. In addition to Tor, you're going to download a separate thing that's called Orbot, which is your controls for Tor. And we talked about VPNs before. There are some VPNs that I can recommend because a lot of VPNs are snake oil salesmen. If you just need a base level VPN that will like connect you really fast for stuff, Proton VPN, Rise Up, and I forgot there's a third one, but Proton VPN and Rise Up VPN are free. Trust DNS will scramble your services stuff, but if you want to go completely safe, there's actually a VPN option in Orbot for Tor. So you click, if you touch that, it will route all traffic through Tor on your phone, whether you're in the Tor browser or not. So you want to go full VPN lockdown, Orbot, and then turn VPN mode on. If not, Proton VPN and Rise Up VPN with all the issues that you can encounter VPNs. If you need a VPN where it's one hop, those ones I definitely recommend. Something also off of F-Droid, you can also put KeyPass on your phone, and you import your base file for KeyPass on your phone and do the same password system. And a lot of services today use verification systems where you scan QR codes, and a lot of them are for Google. On F-Droid, there is a program called OTP, and that is an open source one that's not connected to Google, so that when you do verified passwords, it will not know what its one-time use, connects to the website, then forgets about it completely on your phone. So it doesn't know like what you're actually trying to log into or not. When we come to real quick to surveillance stuff, add a radio app and put on I'd honestly recommend probably WBAI and Off the Hook, which I believe is 99.5. They're probably covering the protests all the time right now. That's a good resource for that. In terms of if you want to hear police, there's a free app and there's a pro version called Scanner Radio, and it's been around for ages. And we can go in, and I already have Jersey City Fire Department. And if we load in, and I don't know if there's any activity right now. The unfortunate part of the free version is that there are ads on it, and if you use something like Blocada, which is also on F-Droid, you'll be able to reduce the ads. But as you can hear now, if you can hear it now, we're listening onto the police radio. And so that's a great way that if you don't know how to modify a radio to listen in onto like police signalings or EMS, so you know where to find emergency, the Scanner Radio is a really good thing, and it also runs in the background. There's also NetGuard from F-Droid, which will allow you to do many different security features in Android that normally Android constantly tries to leave on. Jumbo is really good for privacy stuff for social media networks. So if you're an activist that's tweeting on Twitter and stuff, Jumbo will let you know anytime Twitter tries to access something or something traces back on a social media network. And finally, Snowden recommended this. This was built by Freedom of the Press. It's called Haven. And what it allows you to do is set a time, or you can do it automatically. And basically, if it hears a loud sound or a certain sound or a visual cue or a button press or a swipe, it will immediately start recording video with the microphone nonstop until either you turn it off or the device dies, and it saves that right on your device. So if you are unable to do what Jack did with the awesome thing with Nextcloud, and I'm going to probably leave this on for the rest of the time, but lower down the volume a bit. That is a great way to have a very cheap one thing an app to record what's going on. It is stored locally on your phone, so if they seize your device and try to pull it off and stuff, and your phone is not encrypted, which, by the way, if you're on particularly Android, go in your phone settings and encrypt your phone. That will set people back a lot, even if they have your physical hardware. It will be stored locally, which is why I like Jack's solution, which will upload stuff to the Nextcloud so that even if they destroy the device, it's already up on there. You have access to it. They don't. It's hosted on you. That's that. But if you need something in the record in the now, especially for your own protection, let's say police brutality or thug brutality or whatever, Haven is really good with that. And that's pretty much it. I just wanted to go over apps a bit, and that's a way to fortify your browser. And I guess Jack and I are going to kind of maybe either talk a bit, or we might just air videos, or we just might end this. But yeah, everyone in the chat saying it's a good stream. It's really late at night, so people are going
wow,
to bed.
that was crazy. This really blew up. There's a lot of people in chat.
Yeah, no, this is I feel sad for N Commander. He's having his show on Wednesday, and like the way these streaming things work is that they like let you know your figures, and I'm worried that like he's gonna see it and it's gonna be like, you know, you got like 30 viewers, -1,000,000 from last time because we had so many people watching, which was great. Because thank you. I hope people who watch
thanks
this
everybody.
learn some stuff in there. If you learn some stuff, let us know.
Yeah,
if you want
and-
to know how we
No,
want to.
and seriously, like I'm on the other window, I'm like monitoring my Twitter feed. This is blowing the fuck up. This is like I don't think I've ever anything like this.
Jack, your mic.
No. Okay, my.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me check because I realized I exited out of.
Okay, I'm good.
I can hear you. Sorry about that. Sorry,
Okay, I'm
no,
good.
I forgot I exited.
Okay, so
Twitch
yeah,
on the other
it's
device,
like
so.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in the United States. This is just blowing the fuck up. This is bigger than the World Trade Center protests, the World Trade Organization protest in Seattle.
Yeah.
It's bigger than Rodney King.
Like it's like that, but the entire nation, like every hour.
No, this is what they all fantasized about, like in the '90s, that they were just too fucking derp to ever pull
And it
off.
took 20 years, but they actually did it. Yep.
Yeah, so it's just one thing is not just watch out about that. Watch out, there's this government response that you talk about police state, and it's like literally shit's cooking off. So at this point, it's like I will say, you don't know what to expect from these people yet. You don't know what the new normal is. You don't know what the tactics are. We can kind of speculate based on past capabilities. So just keep your eyes open. Keep talking. I mean, just get your bail fangs and like alternative means of communication. Last thing I will promo is Ninja OS. It's my rinky-dink OS based on Arch Linux, Starch Linux, or Arch Linux. So, like I said, be safe.
It's like
be
Tails,
careful.
but Arch Linux without the blue. To some degree.
It's kind of half. It's kind of like a mixture between like Kali and Tails, but you kind of took like the best from the both. But it's not. It's kind of like more like as opposed to like a special purpose. It's more of kind of like a general purpose. It's just like a live OS that kind of like does everything. So you can just carry one kind of general lightweight general purpose OS that has a little bit of everything. For most of the time I'm developing it now, it's like, wow, 10 years. This is 2020 is now 10 years I've been developing this. So most of the time I've used it like working in IT, just doing it for utility stuff. But there is a lot of interesting tools.
The main thing about this though is that what I do like about Ninja OS is that Jack really focuses on usability of it. It's designed for people that are like kind of like maybe they have base knowledge of computers, like how to use a mouse. And how to type or what a web browser is, but it's not like, you know, because when people think of Arch Linux, they think you have to be you have to program assembly in the command line in order to use it. Yours is while it's based on Arch, it's very much focused on like
basically it
just
basically just boots right to an XFCE desktop. XFCE desktop is kind of set up like Windows with like a application.
A lot of good documentation.
Yeah, and the documentation's there, and for all the people who don't know really how to use Linux, there's in the web browser, which is Firefox, you have all the links.
Next time we'll go into different operating systems,
of how does
including
Linux.
yours. We can show that because I definitely I think we should do this again. I don't know when we're going to do it or as frequent, but you know, we were trying to talk about making something like this. And one, Thug Crowd, thank you to them. They really stepped in and not only spread the word about this, but just like offered so much good content that, you know, a lot of us see us DEFCON 2.1's like we know things. I would like to say we're good at things, but we're not like super Aaron Schwartz Uber hackers, I guess. So there's a lot of topics that we're not experts in, and I'm glad Thug Crowd came in and like we're able to cover a bunch of stuff that we have a hard time explaining. And also, like, I think it's funny that we're kind of talking about doing this, and then you see what's happening out there, and it's like, you know, even if you're just like, I want to go out and get some bread before the supermarkets close at 8 p.m., the situation out there, like, people need to know this, and hackers like us, and it's called All Hackers, we really need to step up our game and inform people what's going on, because you have the ability to configure computer stuff. Like, a lot of devices are very tracking and very insidious, but you have the ability now and the options to configure stuff to be more private and secure, in my opinion, than ever. You're not locked down to Windows 95 all the time or a super really hard Linux distro install from like 1992. You have a lot of options now that are, surprisingly, a lot of them are user-friendly. So the thing about it, though, is so instead of controlling those they control the access to the knowledge to those. So a lot of people don't even know things like your Ninja OS exists, or Signal, or how you can configure Firefox, or how any of this works. So we as hackers need to inform the public, all the public, about this sort of stuff so people can protect themselves, because otherwise companies, organizations, bad hombres, and especially the United States government will take advantage of them, like we've seen.
Yeah, you got some bad hombres coming from Mexico. With some burritos.
So we're gonna do a last call for questions in chat. Otherwise, I guess we'll talk for just a little bit, and then we'll either get going hardcore or just run some videos in the background and then end it either way. Actually, what we will do is, hack the planet. I'm going to actually go into our Discord or Twitch chat here and set this up on Raid Woke. So right before this is done, I'm going to set the raid mode, and anyone watching, your traffic's going to be forwarded over to Twitch/Woke, which has a lot of coverage on the ground from actual activists and privacy-concerned people about what's going on in New York and different cities. So if you want to see ground level without going through a news source, TV news source, or an online news source, because we're not just talking about Fox News and stuff, we're talking about, there's a lot of bias and paid out individual bloggers that we won't name Tim Pool. But there's a lot of them out there who are basically as bad as what we would so-called call the mainstream media. And so if you want to see like raw footage from that, that is definitely a channel to do. We're going to try to do a write-up of this at the end. And one last thing that I would like to add in, because I have this copied and pasted right here. If you want to contribute to things, if let's say you are an activist that's for this, and you want to contribute to like funds for people that got beat up, or to help rebuild the areas after they got looted because it sucks for them, mainly small businesses, or you want to learn more about tech activism and stuff, I'm going to put it right here in Restream, and then when we do a write-up article, it's this. Here are a bunch of links to a bunch of different Black Visions, Minnesota Freedom Fund, National Bailout, Reclaim the Block, Shift Control Space, and Tech Learning Collective that are great resources, whether it's activist resources or tech resources in order for these times. Jack, is there any questions out there? Please write them in chat. Jack, is there anything else you want to talk about real quick before we go, or we think we nailed it?
Let me. What's it called? I'm spent. I'm fading too. I'm ready to hit the sack myself.
We all need sleep because we have a lot of work to do. Before I run off, I will mention again about our stream schedule. We're going to try to do a privacy thing again. I don't know if with Thug Crowd, but we will try to do that. And Commander's having a show on Wednesday at 8 p.m. where he does his normal hacker stuff. Next week on Thursday, Jack's going to have the second episode of Archfile Linux Perspective. So if you want to learn about Ninja OS and a lot of the more advanced like privacy feature stuff and about what he talked about with pen testing, definitely check that out. And we have a bunch of other shows. They're on our website and on our blog. And our meeting is going to be on June 19th. If you thought last month's live stream meeting was insane and that we had amazing speakers, I honestly think at worst, this is just as good, if not leagues better. Like, you guys are going to be excited, especially with some of the, not only the variety of topics, but the in-depth leak hacker stuff you're going to see. Anyhow, that was our privacy special. It was really long, but we had a lot to cover. We hope we get to do this again. This was DEFCON 201. That was my co-founder, G.I. Jack. This is me, Side Pocket. Follow us at defcon21.org. That's also where all our social media is. Tag us on social media at hashtag DEFCON201, all one block. Stay safe, stay legal, fight the good fight, watch the watchers, and hack the planet. See you guys around. Peace. Now I'm going to set off the raid. And see you guys. Jack, are you going to fade out or? Okay. Yeah. So that should redirect everyone to Woke. In your skin or in your mouth? Both. I will. Okay, that's the Zoom. I'm gonna leave Zoom.